I'm oh, now. I'm Commissioner Jan Lee, representing the Northwest region.
Kathy Kahara, East Side at Large, and I live in Bend.
Julie Smitherman, I'm the Southwest Region representative.
Jan Newman, I'm from Portland and the West Side at Large.
Joe Mall, West Central, based in Eugene. Ivan Gall, Director for the Water Resources Department.
Okay, so now what I'd like to do, there's a lot of people in the room today, so what we're gonna do is I want to have staff who's presenting today introduce themselves, and then tomorrow we'll have everyone else introduce themselves. So staff that's presenting. Right over here, we'll start over here.
Carolyn Suffit, Central Region Manager.
Bill Basham, Central Region Water Master.
Danielle Gonzalez, Policy Section Manager. Angela Reinhold, Senior Water Advisor, Central Region. Adair Moon, the Grants Manager.
Wonderful. We got through that pretty quick.
Crystal Grinnell, Integrated Water Resources Strategy Specialist.
Anyone else? All right, well, we're gonna have some special opening remarks today. Today we have with us Greg Smith, he's representative of District 57. So we want to welcome him to the table. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just for the record, my name is State Representative Greg Smith, and I have the real pleasure of serving District 57, which starts in Milton Freewater and heads on down the river, takes in Hermiston and Umatilla, Morrow County, Gillum County, Sherman County, Wheeler County, about 65% of Wasco County, and about 60% of Jefferson County. And I'm blessed to say that I also represent the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. I just very briefly want to let you know how much it means to me personally that you folks are here, that you're in District 57, and that you're here visiting our friends at the Warm Springs. It sends a real message, both symbolically and actually. And so I just want to say thank you. I want you to know that District 57 stands ready to partner with you folks and to partner with our governor. And so please know whatever I can do to be of assistance to make your life easier, to make you folks more productive, please reach out to me. Again, welcome to District 57. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we actually very much enjoyed our tours this morning. So we got to see a little bit.
Wasn't that wonderful?
It really was. So thank you again for being here.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna get started. We have agenda item A, consideration for adoption, Oregon's 2025 Integrated Water Resources Strategy. Crystal, thank you. Just opening up the PowerPoint here.
Right, it looks like PowerPoint is working. Well, thank you for having me today. For the record, my name is Crystal Grinnell. Thank you, Commission, members of the Commission. It's been a long road to get here just to kind of set the stage for this presentation here. The last time I came before the Commission was last June, just at our last meeting. And the Commission had a chance to review some comments that we received on draft 2. And since that time, I have been working with my team, integrated team across many agencies, addressing those public comments, making revisions, and then we produced a document, what we're hoping is a final draft, and we provided that to the Commission in mid-August. So you've had access to that for about a month. And then also we've provided in one of the attachments, all of the comments that were provided by the public and responses from the agencies. And so we had multiple agencies provided responses to that. So we actually, in that spreadsheet, that attachment mentioned how we addressed those comments in the final document. So this presentation here is to walk through a few more of those, just highlight a few of the changes that we made to that final version and wrap up by discussing consideration of adoption. So the agenda that we'll cover in this short presentation will just give a very high level of the engagement efforts because those did occur almost 3 years ago now. So I thought that would be helpful to review. And then we will discuss a very high level the final changes for the draft. Again, the full range of changes can be found in attachment 2. Then we'll discuss consideration for adoption. And there's also an adoption resolution that we may be discussing as well. So to review the 3-year path here that we've been on, just to remind the commission this winding path that we've had. Back in 2022, we had multiple agencies pull together a progress report to look at what had been accomplished on the 2017 Integrated Water Resources Strategy. So I came before the commission and presented that progress report in early 2023. In 2023, we also had our extensive public engagement. So that's when we had a multi-agency team out across the state in multiple places, about 7 meetings, I believe we did. And then we started working on a draft that year as well. Our very first draft came out in early 2024. We had a pause on the development of draft 2. We had new leadership coming in, not just at the Water Resources Department, but we also had some other sister agencies that received new directors as well. Then there was an effort in 2024 with that new leadership to develop multi-agency priorities. So this was a new effort the Integrated Water Resources Strategy has never done before, is prioritize something. So that was a new piece that took a little bit of time. And then we produced draft 2 just this past April. The final IWRS was, as I mentioned earlier, was delivered to the commission in mid-August. And here we are, hopefully discussing adoption. So to review the engagement efforts, we had many different elements happening for engagement. So we had a track for tribes. We had very specific things for the public. We also had an interagency survey where we sent that out to multiple agencies to hear what they had in mind for the next Integrated Water Resources Strategy. Throughout the last 3 years, myself and other folks have been presenting the Integrated Water Resources Strategy at multiple organizations, meetings, as well as various agency boards, commissions, and committees. I have a slide here that summarizes the tribal engagement efforts. Some things to highlight here are really the consistent outreach in terms of seeking consultation over the course of the 3 years, various presentations, and then of course submitting drafts of the document to the tribes. And we did receive comments from 3 tribes on this second draft, on draft 2. We also had a facilitation support from Oregon's Kitchen Table. So that was a consultant that we hired to help carry out our public engagement. So that team helped with our in-person meetings, as well as the production of a survey that was translated into 9 languages. In total, with all of those events that we did with Oregon's Kitchen Table, we engaged nearly 2,000 people. So now shifting over into a brief summary of the changes for the final draft, I think there was really, this can be broken down into about 4 different things that we've done. So we were focusing on addressing public comments, and again, those came from a range of sources. We also had just completed the 2025 long legislative session at the end of June, and so there was an adequate time for us to pull in some of those things to the draft that the commission received in August. We also had this document available to all of the agencies that had worked on it, so they could make agency updates throughout, as I showed that slide earlier in the presentation, we've been working on this document for about 2.5 years. So some things have changed and gone out of date. We also had federal agencies. We have some federal information in there, and so some federal agencies that have updates for us on that document. And then agency priorities is again the new thing that is new for the 2025 Integrated Water Resources Strategy. And so the agency priorities have been modified from the version that we discussed in June. They're now different from what you saw in the August version. And I have some more detailed slides on that later. So to dive in a little bit more into those changes that we have from draft 2, we did receive 20 full sets of comments, all shown in attachment 2, from a range of entities, tribes, organizations, and individuals. And then we also had state and federal agency review. So the introduction to the document has changed a bit between draft 2 and what you received in August. That the language has been updated. We did have several folks identify in their public comment that they felt like the objective descriptions were not fully developed. And so we've modified those and made some changes in terms of how we're presenting the priorities. So this is the introduction piece that's about the first 10 pages or so of that document. We also have a new component. Director Gall provided a letter at the beginning of the document. So we have a nice letter there that kind of sets the stage for the time that we're in this 2025 Integrated Water Resources Strategy. And then we also had federal updates kind of sprinkled throughout the document. So I have a few slides here that talk about very specific changes that we made just associated with some tribe requests, because I think it helps highlight. We were really combing through on these comments. There was a lot of really detailed input that we wanted to make sure we were addressing. So in some cases, we were adding new example actions, and in some cases, we were modifying narrative to clarify something or add new information. So something I wanted to highlight on this slide here, just in terms of the last couple of years of working on this document, a new toxin related to water quality has really become a bigger issue. So we do have a whole new paragraph in the document about 6-ppd quinone, which is essentially something related to car tires that can degrade when it reacts with ozone and become quite toxic to aquatic life. So we've added that in there. That did not exist in the older version of the document. And we've also added some new example actions there, specifically about collaboration and consultation with tribes. And one of the last slides I have here, again, highlighting some example actions, improving the process for resolving in-stream water rights. That was something we heard from numerous commenters. So that made it in there. And then we also, just to flag for the commission, we also did have some minor changes to Appendix A as well. So a reminder that we have really kind of pulled out a lot of the descriptions of all of the agencies and the tribes from the body of the document itself, but Appendix A is really where you can find all of that very concentrated information if that's what you're looking for. And then I have just a couple of slides here to show the legislative outcome. So we all know that there was a very big water year in this 2025 long legislative session. So I've just flagged a few actions from the Integrated Water Resources Strategy and where we've integrated some new language about this legislation that just recently passed. So it was very timely that we were able to get reference to this new information. So Action 9C regarding partnering with tribes and federal agencies. There was a House bill that passed regarding tribal consultation task force. So that was very relevant there to mention. And then we've always had in the Integrated Water Resources Strategy an action encouraging water reuse. The legislature has advanced their interest in reuse and House Bill 2169 identifies several things that the state is looking to do regarding reuse, but one of those main pieces is improving coordination across agencies, so very relevant to the IWRS. We also saw a House bill regarding the Deschutes Basin water banking, so that was related to Action 10D. We also saw a large bill regarding groundwater quality management, again, a multi-agency Senate bill there. It had a lot of relevance to Action 11E and some other places within the document as well. And then finally, for this slide, Action 12A regarding ensuring the safety of Oregon's drinking water. There was a House bill that successfully addressed one of the issues that we had actually flagged in some earlier drafts with water quality and renters not knowing what their water quality is. And so it was nice to see some legislation passed to address that. So landlords will be required to report water quality to their tenants in certain situations. So now moving on to the other piece that has really shifted between June and the August draft are the agency priorities. And so again, to remind the listeners and the commission about the priorities, we really have divided up our priorities into three priority areas. So the first one being act with urgency, the second being assist communities and the state to deal with water scarcity, and the final one being adapting to doing more with less water and stretching our water, considering water scarcity. So the big changes continue to be on the priorities, really trying to make these measurable outcomes. So that's a huge focus of the priorities, is setting out something that we can show that we can accomplish. Also a really big focus on things that can be done with multiple agencies. So it's not just a single agency action generally listed on these priorities. It's usually requiring the coordination of multiple agencies together. And all of these priorities will be used to inform our newly required biennial work plan. So just a reminder that back in 2023, we saw two big changes to the statute regarding the integrated water resources strategy. One of those shifting to requiring updates over every 8 years instead of every 5. And the second new thing was requiring biennial work plans. So now we need to produce 2-year work plans on the document, which we did not need to do in the past. So I have 3 slides here that show the new priorities. Much more simplified and streamlined version of what you saw in draft 2. So very similar topics discussed. This first one here really being the things that are most urgent to be addressed, and really covering a range of compliance through in-stream needs and drinking water really within these 5 tasks. Priority area 2, assisting communities. So this one includes some planning efforts, modernization, and providing adequate data for people to make these planning and database decisions. And then finally, the last area is adapting to water scarcity. So this group or cluster of tasks really focuses more on the end project type. So conservation and water reuse and storage are all just an example of the types of projects that are highlighted here. And again, those were found in Appendix E in the document. So just wrapping up here, just highlighting the work plan development piece. So all of those priorities and other things that agencies know that they will be working on will need to be reflected in a work plan. So we're gathering the agencies together to work on that, and we'll hopefully have a draft in October. We are looking to do public comment on that. We've heard from a lot of partners that they have an interest in seeing what that first one looks like. So we will also be looking at that. And then our next main focus really is the next work plan. And I say that there's an emphasis on that kind of future work plan, the second one essentially, really we need to get in front of this next budgeting cycle. And so budgeting will be happening in early 2026. And so for us to be able to have engagement and have that meaningful engagement, we need to get in front of that agency development, budget development. And so early 2026 is when we would likely be looking at that. So this is just a little map of what how we're hoping this process will transpire over a biennium, where we're having engagement in front of budget development. The governor's recommended budget will then go to the legislature. And then we will, once we know what the legislatively adopted budget is, we'll be able to finalize that work plan and hit the ground running. So when I come before the commission in December, hopefully we'll have more details on this, as well as our 25-27 work plan. And here we are at the most exciting slide, which is the consideration of adoption. So we've presented 3 options here for the commission. Option 1 being that we adopt the strategy as proposed in attachment 1. Option 2 to adopt the 2025 strategy as proposed in attachment 1 with modifications that you would be discussing. And then option 3, do not adopt the 2025 strategy and decide when we should return, what should be changed, and when we should return to request adoption. So at this point, I'll open it up to the commission to discuss.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I'm sure this slide is very exciting, especially for you. You've been working on this a long time. Do we have any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I was very impressed with this final document. This is double-sided. It had great clarity, completeness, and interactive references that I especially liked. I did read all of the public comments and felt that staff addressed them appropriately. And I would like to see us adopt this today.
Thank you. Commissioner Newman?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank staff for all the work that's gone into this. And I also appreciate the attention to the public comments and the detail, even though it's very hard to read the tiny print. Reading through the summary of the public comments and the staff response, it just shows the amount of attention and work that's gone into this. There's only one thing, I think this plan reads really well. One thing that kind of bothered me as I was reading through it is that I don't feel like it recognizes enough what things have happened because of the 2012 plan and the 2017 plan or strategy. And you guys need more work, like you need a hole in the head, because I know that the work plan process is going to be really time consuming and rapidly moving. But I'd almost like to see kind of as another appendix, a report card, that's sort of, because if somebody who wasn't familiar with Oregon just sort of picked this up and didn't know there had been 2 previous iterations or versions, might think, oh, this is really ambitious and it's great and there's priorities and lots of stuff needs to be done and it's all very clearly laid out, but it could almost read as if it were the first such plan, whereas buried in the narrative a lot of times are some of the wins that have occurred because of what's been going on since 2012. I mean, some of the legislative action, funding improvements, agency coordination, all those things are not by accident, and they're not coming in from the blue on top of this process. A lot of them are because of this process. And I think it would just be, and maybe it's somebody else, somebody on the outside, some student at OSU or something like that, who can take a look and try to document in sort of a report card what has grown out of the first 2 iterations, and then continuing that into the future, because there's so much work in here. There's so much good information. There's so much good aspirational thinking and goals, I love the way that you brought the climate change back in and really integrated that. And I just think we want to kind of, I don't want to say pat ourselves on the head, but I mean, I think we want to sort of indicate or take credit for the fact that things are changing in the Oregon water landscape. And you know, that really started, I mean, it started with a lot of things, but it started with legislative interest, which then led us to the integrated water resources strategy and everything that's come out of it. So that's my only comment. Otherwise, I am, you know, fully prepared to go with option one.
Commissioner Newman, can I ask a clarifying question on that? Just some ideas that came up when you were speaking. I was wondering if we added, there are two places, I guess, that I saw that information. One was in the 2017 Integrated Water Resources Strategy. There was some acknowledgement of what had happened since the 2012, and I believe that was at the beginning of the document. And then we also have the progress report that we did in 2017, or sorry, in 2022, looking at what had been done between 2017 and 2022. So I'm wondering if we added that as an appendix, if that would be adequate, and then maybe just summarized what we saw in the 2017 intro that kind of addressed that. Would that be something that you think would add value to the document?
I think it would. Mhm.
Okay. Do we have too many appendices? It sounds like there's room for one more. It seems like that would be a good addition. Other commissioners,
But
seeing, yeah.
Or it
Okay.
could be a separate thing. You know, I don't want to mess this
Yeah.
process up.
We do have the progress report printed or linked on our page with the integrated water resources strategies. That is, I think, visible for folks, but that kind of first step, people would have, you know, of what was accomplished between the 2012 and the 2017, folks would have to read the 2017 version to see what were the big items there. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hall?
Just think it's kind of funny to note that my colleague, Commissioner Newman, has got a stack of papers in front of her with all of those appendices printed out. So I think it's a good idea. Report cards are great. Our good friend Pam Wiley will tell you how expensive they are to maintain. I think that you all have done a remarkably graceful job of this, and maybe that's an odd word, but considering the whiplash that went with the different versions and the feedback that we got, particularly from people, organizations, individuals, representatives who are comfortable with the format of the 2017, because they were comfortable using it primarily from a lobbying or a budget development position. That was hard, and I think you all have handled this remarkably well, so bravo for doing that. It does concern me still that we're gonna fall into the trap of using old ways to address new problems, and I hope we don't. With that in mind, I think the three priorities, the act, assist, and adapt, is brilliant, and we really need to stick with that. We had an example in discussion this morning of one of those really tough cases now in this region that is a direct result of the fact that our land use system and our water rights systems really don't talk well to each other until it's very late in the process. And I think that this plan it gives us a great opportunity to build on what, especially the 4 or 5 new directors that have been working on, right? And I see your group's imprint, I see the group of 4's imprint on this, and it's exciting, but it really is on us, those 3 things: to act with urgency, assist communities, which we'll have a lot of that to talk about these next 2 days, and then adapting, just acknowledging that we're adapting to water scarcity and not simply saying, we're gonna provide water for everybody. It's not gonna be that way anymore, so I really, really appreciate the work you've put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Chiara?
At the time. Also want to thank you for the work you've done and what your team has done. I know you've gone through hell, basically trying to sort through all this stuff, and then pile of public comments. It was just, my goodness. thank you. It's a good document. I think it'll be easy for people to use once they get kind of into it. I always liked a nice big spreadsheet when you know, oh, there I am, right there. Makes it easy. If you want more information, you can find that in the report. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm just gonna echo what everyone else has said up here, and I'm gonna lay it out like this. You have navigated new leadership, new legislation, multiple agency priorities, and addressed very detailed input from the tribes, from individuals, from many organizations, and you've managed to create a very comprehensive document. It might not have absolutely everything in it, but it is a very strong document, and I think it's going to be a good guide taking us forward in how we're managing our water in the state of Oregon. So thank you so much, Crystal, for all of your work on this and for the rest of staff that has been working on this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I think I want to take a minute to acknowledge just the incredible team that we've had working in the background. I've been the single person essentially coming before the commission for the last 3 years, but there is a huge team of other folks at other agencies and within our agency that have all been able to support me. And so all of those detailed comments that we saw, that was me reaching out to experts and getting very timely and accurate, thorough responses and being able to get those in the document. So that would not have been possible without a great responsive team from not just our agency, but multiple agencies as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we definitely appreciate all the work that they've done as well. So, okay, with that, entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the integrated water resources strategy as drafted with the addition of the appendix of the 2022
2017-2022 progress report.
progress report as stated.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Newman?
Yay.
Commissioner Kihara?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Mall?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes.
Right, thank you.
Congratulations.
The next staff report, we have agenda item B. We're gonna go over the strategic plan on diversity.
Vice Chair Smitherman,
Yes,
we did have a couple of folks sign up for public comment on
Oh, that's
item
right.
A,
Thank you.
if
I
that's
apologize.
possible.
Yes, so first we'll go to public comment. I apologize. I got ahead of myself. First one we have Max Jones from Rainmaker Technology Corporation.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Max Jones, and I'm here with Rainmaker. And I appreciate obviously the passing of the integrated system plan for the past couple of weeks, and it really made a lot of sense in terms of conservation, making sure that we could spread a resource that's diminishing very quickly amongst all needs possible in the state. I'm here on behalf of Rainmaker to just sort of introduce the concept of next generation cloud seeding into the state of Oregon. We've partnered with the state of Colorado, Utah, and Idaho, and in other countries around the world to bring radar validated cloud seeding, which can increase snowpack from 10 to 20% in our state, which obviously would help the water systems throughout and track them accordingly. And that's all. So thank you.
Thank you, Max. Next up, we have April Snell.
Thank you. For the record, April Snell, Executive Director of the Oregon Water Resources Congress. Chair Smitherman, it sounds lovely to say that. Members of the commission, Director Gall, public. Just want to make a few comments. You've heard me previously make comments on the IWRS during the different stages of that. And I guess just going back a little bit to add on, Crystal, you have done an incredible job. And while I recognize that often I'm up here giving critical feedback, and as the staff person that has to hear that and then incorporate that, I know that is not an easy task, and you've done a stellar job with that. At the last meeting in Pendleton, you may recall that I highlighted comments that had been made by OWRC as well as the Oregon Association of Nurseries and Oregon Farm Bureau about the last draft, and realizing that this needed to be done. And speaking for OWRC, we are comfortable with the draft that was adopted. But there were two pieces in that letter that I wanted to highlight that I think are really important going forward. One is the next update of the IWRS. Please plan ahead for that and use external stakeholders to help develop that from the beginning along with the agencies. And I think there's a variety of reasons why that wasn't able to happen this time. And as always, it's important to learn and move forward. So it may seem like that's a long ways off, but it'll be here before we know it, and would really encourage you guys as the commission to think about what that would look like. And if there is a resource ask around that, be planning that out, and would offer myself as a stakeholder who would be willing to help advocate for that in the right circumstances. Secondly, and related, as you're working on the work plan, which will be starting soon, really hope that you will also use stakeholders to help you both develop that work plan, but also give you feedback that will be critical as we as external stakeholders are able to advocate on your behalf, including if things don't get included in the GRB and in the legislative environment. There's a very extensive rulemaking that the department will be doing that many of us are on. I think that's planning to go through April. So I mentioned that because from a workload perspective, many of us are all kind of doing the same thing. So just kind of floating it out there that it would be nice to see a plan for some stakeholder engagement in spring of next year or earlier or whatever makes the most sense. But I think it is both an opportunity for us as stakeholders to help inform the process, but also what I recall from the previous efforts, and I do agree, we can model that together in a different fashion, but being in the same room together, having the same conversations as representatives of in-stream, out-of-stream, tribal, state agencies, communities, everybody, we learn from one another in that process. And it is through learning from one another that we can find opportunities for partnership and collaboration in a world that is largely divided on issues. So we are going into a resource constrained environment, and that's something that I'm very mindful of. But however we can help, happy to do that. I just encourage you guys to plan out and see how you can get stakeholder input in a way that's going to make sense for you and your staff. So thank you very much, and thanks for your efforts.
Thank you, April. Did anyone have any questions or comments for April?
This isn't necessarily for you, April. It's actually a point of question of clarification. The commission doesn't need to act on the work plans, correct? We're simply kept in the loop. We take no action on the work plans, correct?
Vice Chair Smith and members of the commission, that's correct. The work plans are work products of the agency. We'll be working with various state agencies that are key in the IWRS work. We'll be bringing you updates, try to answer questions. You are certainly free to provide your own thoughts. I think we're headed out on that.
And I failed to ask, does anyone have any questions for Max Jones? Sorry about that, Max. Thank you for your comments. Okay, I think we are ready to move on to agenda item B. I just got very excited about passing on IWRS. So. Agenda item B, strategic and diversity, equity, inclusion and justice plan.
Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission, for the record, Ivan Gall, Director for the Water Resources Department.
And Danielle Gonzalez, Policy Section Manager.
Right off the bat, I want to get started here by thanking a couple of our key staff who aren't with us today. Both Laura Tesler and Margot Mashkutskaya contributed greatly to the strategic plan. Very much appreciate their efforts and all of the organizational skills that they brought to the table to help us with this. This also has been one of those fast-moving projects that had to remain nimble as the IWRS finalization process has occurred, and we were trying to carefully align the strategic plan with those three priority areas in the integrated water resources strategy here. I'm just going to do kind of a quick recap of what we covered at the last meeting there. Remind us where we're at with this, and then I'll turn it over to Danielle. Really, the goal here is to talk about the purpose or priority areas and that alignment with the IWRS for the strategic plan. And then talk a little bit about how we'll be using that as an agency moving forward over the next 5 years. What is this strategic plan really all about? Well, if you recall, the strategic plan we were operating under was a 2019 through 2024 plan. These strategic plans are now requirements from the Department of Administrative Services. So these are expectations for each agency to have one. And it's to be used to help guide us with constrained resources. We have to focus and be prioritized in what we do. And our plan is going to help us do that. It's going to help assist the team in making decisions on our resource allocation. So there are many things we would like to do. There are many things we need to do because of resource constraints. Again, there's a prioritization exercise that needs to go on, and we have to be able to identify which projects are going to be completed and which ones are going to have to wait. The strategic plan is also a good communication tool for us to use. It helps transparently share with our water partners across the state what is it we intend to do, and certainly along timelines. Crystal shared that we'll be working on work plans for the integrated water resources strategy, and we're going to work hard to align the strategic plan and those work plans. We don't want a number of different work plans floating around out there for the sake of our staff and for the water partners out there who want to track what we're doing. We're trying to get all of this information into one common area that will make it easy for folks to reference and keep up with what we're working on there. You've seen this slide before. We commonly refer to this as the golden thread. What this really is about is to show how the various agency priorities that come from the director, the Integrated Water Resources Strategy, priorities from the governor's office, what our external water partners and the tribes would like us to be working on, how that gets fed into the strategic plan matrix, and then works into the agency portfolio of the individual projects that we'll be working on and reporting out on. Crystal covered the 3 priority areas from the IWRS. Those are fleshed out a little bit more here in priority area 1, 2, and 3. You can see the act with urgency, assist the state and communities, and adapt to doing more with less water have been modified to meet the needs of our strategic plan there. And then priority area 4 is a 4th focus area there that originates from within the department. This is one through working with our staff and our management team is going to help us focus on strengthening our core agency operations, enhancing external communications, and modernizing both our department technology and our processes. And we're already working on some of that, and we'll be excited to share what we're doing and the results of that at future meetings here.
think with that, Danielle, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you, Director Gall. So this slide here illustrates the overall view of the IWRS and the strategic plan that is aligned. So you'll see in this, the IWRS is an 8-year plan, that's in the blue on the top. The strategic plan is a 5-year framework, and that is in the yellow. And of course, as everybody knows, yellow and blue makes green. It is sealed. And so that is reported, is captured. The final is the milestones that will come together with our legislative mandates and our priority for work plans that we will be developing and have started to develop. So pulling forward, this is exactly the same information that you received from Crystal. So priority area 1, act with urgency to protect in-stream and out-of-stream uses. And so that's adapted from the IWRS. This priority 1 contains those targeted actions for the near-term improvements, and then also updates water laws, improving permitting processing, increasing resources towards compliance and protecting water in prioritized areas of the state. Priority area 2 is about water scarcity, and because it is an increasingly impactful challenge for individuals, ecosystems, and communities in Oregon, priority area 2 is to address through collaboration and provide reliable data. It is integrating the water data systems across agencies. It's about working through the Oregon Water Data Portal, improving access to critical information to people making decisions, planning, and also for communities and individuals. Priority area 3 has effective tools. We currently have effective tools like water conservation, reuse, and water right transfers, but their impact is limited by funding and capacity. To seek opportunities to work with sovereign tribal governments, federal and local partners, and invest in voluntary efforts whenever possible to improve water quality, quantity, and habitat. We hope that by aligning all of those resources and streamlining the processes, that we can accelerate water supply resilience across the state. Now, priority area 4 is the one that we've been working on in the strategic plan specifically. And so it has, as Director Gall said, focused more internally on improving building a stronger, more agile workforce, enhancing staff supports, and improving internal processes by modernizing our IT systems. These systems have been under-resourced for a series of years, and it's really catching up to us for us to be able to provide the best service to Oregonians. Streamlining and developing standard operating procedures. One of the things that we've heard as a criticism of our agency is that, sometimes it seems inconsistent over the years. And so by us creating standard operating procedures, we are working to address those a little bit at a time. Improve interdepartmental coordination and external communications. Sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes we do the good work and then don't know how to talk about it. And so we need to be doing a better job of working on our external communications and interdepartmental communications across other agencies. And so that is a priority as well. And then identifying key roles within the agency and to help develop career pathways. So there are a couple of specific roles in our agency that we know in the 5 years timeframe that we may have some vacancies. And those are hard positions for us to fill, that we're trying to start creating those career pathways now instead of waiting until those positions are not filled. All of those the last four priority were informed by our staff internally, as well as things that we've been hearing already consistently throughout communities. And so for us to then take, what is the next step, right? We can say that these are our priority areas, but darn it, how are you gonna actually make that happen? Well, milestone development is where we have been trying to put rubber to the road. The milestones are aligning the ongoing work with our legislative expectations, and it's capturing both the ongoing work as well as the areas of purposeful focus that we are trying to put our efforts towards. We have hoped that this milestones that we've developed are progress indicators. And this is something that we would be bringing back to you just to provide updates of how the progress is moving. They are high level, and the work plans would then provide those details. Key that's important to note here is, as Director Gall said, we will be developing work plans with the IWRS and our strategic plan. Our strategic plan will carry those forward, and as you saw in the document that you received in the tables in the back, it literally just takes the information from the IWRS for the things that are specific to our agency, pulls them into our strategic plan, which then also pulls it into our portfolio management and our reporting systems that we are currently developing. So our next steps for the strategic plan is to finalize it and submit it to the Department of Administrative Services. We are planning to do a staff internal kickoff. So they've been hearing about progress as it's been moving along. And so we're going to be having an all staff meeting in October to do that kickoff between the IWRS and the strategic plan. Then we'll be working on our biennial work plan development. This is a little bit further back time frame than we would have liked. We would have liked to have started the biennium with a work plan in hand. That is just not how the timing worked this time. But we did get a good step forward in developing those milestones. So we have some good ideas of how to finalize those work plans. And then we will be providing additional updates to the commission through our strategic plan reporting, as well as the IWRS reporting, and then project-specific decision-making information. We'll continue to bring that to you as well. And then through the development of those legislative agendas as we are moving forward with the 27-29 biennium.
And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hall?
I have one question that's pretty deep into the weeds. 4 places in the plan as written. Let me back up. This is great to see move forward and the pace at which it moved forward. So thank you for that, and acknowledging Laura and Margot's participation in that as well. My in the weeds question, there's 4 places where these economic opportunity analyses advisory committees are mentioned. And I just don't remember much about what they are, and it interests me a lot because it's something that we've talked about, I feel like, in that same vein of the different agencies just not having a lot of structural or behavioral interaction until it's really late in the decision-making process. This sounds like something that will allow us to get ahead of that a little bit, and in my mind, help demonstrate that water constraints should really be right up front in economic assessments of development potential. But I'm not familiar with the process. Is that something that you could do just a real quick intro on, so we could get a sense for what OWRD staff will be participating in those and what that will look like?
Thank you, Chair Smitherman, Commissioner Mall. The economic opportunities studies, or the Economic Opportunity Advisory Committee, is actually part of the IWRS work, and that landed in that place. So I'm not as familiar on that side. I will say though, so ODF&W has a couple of economists. We've actually been talking with them to see if we could borrow them from time to time. We have requirements through our rulemakings to provide fiscal impact analysis on different rules and on every single rules. And you actually will see any of the financial impact statements that we have to do for rulemaking. But generally, we don't have an economist on staff. That has been a long desire, at least I know since I've been here, to have somebody that actually can work through, but water economics is kind of a specialty. And so we have hired in the past some economists to work through, specifically in Harney in the last few years, but also the statewide business case for investing in water in Oregon. On that business case that we did previously, we had multiple different kind of case studies that evaluated different types of water use and the economic analysis. And we used those particular items that were looked at from the economists as our anchoring. of how it would impact. And so that's now from what I think 2022, 23, I think it was. And so of course, as those years go on, we'll probably have to continue on that.
Thanks, that's a good reminder. Again, I feel like it's an area where for that integration to get ahead of the curve on some of these decisions that get way through multiple agency processes and then get gummed up with lawsuits, that not just economic impact of decisions, but water as a fundamental economic driver. Would love to see, whether it's it doesn't necessarily have to be an economist on staff, but just to, in the initial analyses of an economic development, quote, opportunity, to recognize that one of the three priorities, that we are dealing now with scarcity, and that should be right up front, so that a lot of process and time doesn't go by before it sort of halts the brakes on things. So anything that we could do legislatively or otherwise to help support that, would really like to do. So, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Newman?
Thank you. Once again, great staff work. I am very excited to see a strategic plan that is linked with the IWRS. I mean, that's often a problem with institutional strategic plans, as they're sort of going off on their own tangent. And I love the linkage here. I think that's very strong. It's going to be very clear to staff what's supposed to be happening. Two other quick things. One comment and then one question. I also think it's fantastic that we're holding on to the DEI stuff. And I know that's, you know, it's not just this agency, it's the state, it's kind of the politics of this region, but obviously it's not the case in a lot of places. So I'm very pleased to see it integrated into this plan. And I just wanted to make two quick little comments about that. One, or anecdotes. One is that I was impressed that the IWRS public survey was translated into 9 languages. I don't know if you got 9 different language responses, but I think, you know, that's the kind of thing that needs to keep happening so that it can have an impact over time. So that's one little piece that I just made me happy. Another thing that made me happy, and I don't think I'm talking out of school here, in the van on the way over, when we had some staff in our van, there was just some discussion about one of the ongoing programs of reporting information to the department. And one of the staff members, and I won't name names, but made a just sort of a casual comment that, well, we were concerned about sort of the, I'm going to paraphrase, the economic situation of some of the people responding to these requests. And so we felt like we needed a different kind of follow-up to sort of give them another chance. And I was like, this is how we need to do this. And that was exciting because that's DEI, you know, on the ground, sort of permeating staff outlook and outreach. And it's obvious that it's coming from everybody in the department, that that's important, and this plan will help do that. So that's the other major comment. And then my question is just whether DAS, it's been a long time since I've been in a state agency, but you know, you have some good portions of the plan about career development and career pathways, and it's always so wonderful if you can promote from within and then send people out to do other good things in other agencies and so forth. But do you get help from DAS on sort of like, you know, training groups of people to help them move up career-wise? Do you get career development help from DAS and career training help from DAS, or are you kind of on your own to figure that out?
Vice Chair Smitherman and Commissioner Newman, members of the commission, the Department of Administrative Services and the Central Fiscal Office do what they can. We do have dollars for each staff person per biennium for training. That training can vary from technical training, technical writing training. We try and find classes that offer the most bang for the buck. Some of those are job specific. Others are more career development type trainings. We are working hard internally to kind of leverage the training dollars we have or other resources where we can often train multiple people by bringing in a trainer instead of sending staff to a remote location. Department of Administrative Services over the years has also developed a number of management trainings. So staff who would like to become managers or are new managers, there are different training opportunities provided to those. Governor Kotek has made it one of her expectations that all new managers within a matter of months go through that initial training program upon hire. And so there's a realization across the enterprise that training and investing in our workforce is really important. We would certainly like to have more resources to chase after that, but I feel we have adequate at this point in time is how I would characterize it. And we're always looking for other ways to leverage other opportunities there as well. So good
Great.
question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I appreciate the staff development on this. It's a good plan and we'll get it done. One thing, I had two questions actually. One is, I know DAS and the governor's office are wanting these plans to be implemented. And I wonder if the governor is, as a result, building into the budget, into your budget and approving your budget to be able to accomplish these, and if there is a process to identify those needs and how they can be dealt with.
Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioner Lee, and members of the commission, our agency hasn't received any specific additional resources to assist with something like the strategic plan. That, I believe, is just something that we're going to have to do on our own and have done so as well. There is a recognition amongst many of the agencies in the department and through the governor's office as well that you can only ask for or have so many expectations for an agency without providing additional resources. So it's often discussed amongst leadership at the state level there. And, we certainly do the best we can with the resources we have. And I think have put out just an absolutely excellent product that I'm very proud of in this new strategic plan with those resources. So thank you.
And my second question was, I saw the term technical debt in the document and I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thank you. Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioner Lee, technical debt is the amount of almost a backlog that we have in IT and technical items that we need to do. So security of our computer systems, upgrading devices, things like that. So technical debt being actually technology debt, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yes. And Commissioner Lee, if I could also add to what Director Gall was just talking about, with our milestones that we have selected for 25-27, knowing what our budget is right now, we believe that we can actually get to these target milestones with the budget that we currently have for 25-27. Some of the milestones and work is actually to request resources for the next one, and that is part of that milestone part for 25-27. So we are trying to think further ahead in our resource requests for 25 or for 27-29.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Chiara?
Yeah, no questions really on the strategic plan. It looks good. It's easy to follow. And like Commissioner Newman, I'm very pleased to see the DEI portion of this. And just from past experience in the other, in my previous federal life, succession planning is critically important. And I'm glad to see that, you're thinking about that now rather than waiting until the body has left the building. It's so much institutional knowledge has, had to walk out the door in the federal agencies lately that I think all of us, no matter where you are in life, are starting to feel that loss. So I am thankful that this agency is actually thinking and actively planning for that succession to happen. Thank you.
I'm gonna agree with my fellow commissioners on that point. I think it's great that you're looking within and you're developing people within the organization to take on those roles for that consistency. I also really liked how not only did you engage with the public numerous times on these topics, but you also really engaged internally. I see 20 internal staff workshops. And that's a big deal to hear from the people that are working on these projects and moving these strategic plans forward. So I really like that you spent that, I know, a lot of time getting that feedback, not only with the workshops, but with the surveys that you did. And then again, to just echo, I like the coordination with the IWRS and bringing in the priorities, the act with urgency, the assist, the adapt, the advance internal processes. I feel like that really flows. It's easy to follow. And I just think you've put together a very well written document. So thank you. And thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you.
And I don't think we have any public comment on this one. So let's see, I think we're a little bit ahead of time. We're supposed to be taking a break at 2:45, but since it's 2:08, you think we could keep moving forward to the next agenda item? Does anybody have any calls with that? Okay, so instead of agenda item C, we're actually going to jump to agenda item D. We'll come back to C shortly after the break. So that is our Central Region update.
Person who was supposed to join us and he's not able to make it, so somebody's going to be presenting online on his behalf.
Okay.
So we just wanted to make sure that he is ready to go.
Is ready online? Not on just yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll, as soon as he comes on, then we can add.
Yeah. I think he's meant to present in maybe about 20 minutes, so we're probably okay to start.
Okay, you want to go ahead and get started and then we can bring him in to do his piece. Okay. I know we're a little early, so sorry about that. Appreciate it though. You're almost there. And I see Justin Iverson online. Welcome, Justin.
Vice Chair Cinnamon, and members of the commission, my name is Bill Nashville. I'm the Crooked River Basin Water Master. And we're here together with Carolyn Sutton, our Central Region Manager, and Justin Iverson, our Groundwater Manager, who's online, and Angela Reinhold, our Senior Water and Advisor. Today we're going to talk about surface water and groundwater management, planning and policy developments. Give you a little bit of overview of the basin in general, and then kind of finish it off with the policy. So in general, this talk today is going to speak about our region overview, what's going on in the central region. We're going to discuss how we're measuring a lot of the outcomes, not only of water, but a lot of the outcomes of a lot of the conservation that's going on in our basin. We're also going to discuss some of the workload associated with our accounting for storage and water use in the basin. And in addition, at the end, we're going to talk about some conservation projects and speak to one particular one in the area that is kind of a really special project that's gone on in a joint effort between the DRC and ONERD, as well as the NRCS. So to start real quick, you guys can see on there this is the central region, and the Deschutes Basin is on the left, and the Crooked Basin is on the right. I want to bring to your attention the lack of a stream drainage network in the Deschutes Basin, and we're dealing basically with a dichotomy of hydrologic conditions in the central region. We've got in the west, we're dealing with relatively pervious, younger deposits that percolate and transmit water very readily. And then over here on the east side of the Crooked River Basin, we deal with a very tight, non-pervious geologic deposits that inhibit groundwater storage, groundwater recharge, and promote flashy runoff systems. Oh, I should pass the microphone so it's not. Got it. So to begin with, the Deschutes Basin hydrogeology, to orient you, this is basically the Deschutes Basin for all intent and purposes. You've got Bend in the middle here. We've got Redmond, Sisters, and Madras up here in the northeast. What I'd like to bring your attention to, the darker colors of where we have very, very high recharge rates into our aquifer system. And we know that in the Deschutes, and it's been established for 25, 30 years now, that the groundwater and the surface water are hydrologically connected. They're basically one and the same. And our recharge of our Deschutes aquifer occurs here on the west side of the basin, as well as, believe it or not, it actually occurs west of the Cascade Crest. We actually receive groundwater recharge from the west side, actually, of the Cascade Crest. And you'll see the less recharge, the lighter colors, as we go to the east of the basin. Now once we get over here, we start getting into the Crooked River Basin, and the colors would actually effectively get lighter. So there's basically it's just the recharge in the Crooked River Basin is minimal. Down here, I wanted to talk about this is a 40-year hydrograph of two pieces of data. One, you've got at the bottom, we've got well responses of a well in Sisters, okay, over the course of 40 years. And we've also got the outflow of some springs, fall rivers specifically, in the Deschutes Basin. And you'll notice that you have, they match pretty well together. And additionally, the effects of the groundwater and runoff are relatively attenuated over time. And the reason being is that you get percolation of our surface water into the groundwater, and it takes a long time. So this is a span of 5 years. So we could have a series of droughts, but yet we won't see the effect of the droughts in our spring discharge until it takes a while. We have several years of drought, and then conversely, we need several years of higher than normal precipitation to bring them back up. So we call it an attenuated plot, basically. To exemplify the hydrology of the Deschutes Basin, like I mentioned, most all of the base flow is spring fed, and the Deschutes River was the most stable river pre-irrigation and alteration in the US, and it was because of that attenuated hydrograph. It was a consistent flow, spring, summer, winter, and fall. Now, once we started irrigating approximately 260,000 acres using surface water, we get this plot that we have over here. So this would be a year, okay? And what we're looking at right here in the middle of the plot is March, April, okay? So that would be the beginning of the irrigation season, all right? This darker color is what the Deschutes River flows used to do on a yearly basis. Now what we see is in the wintertime, we store water. So the flows of the Deschutes are very low, and because we're storing. And then as soon as irrigation season comes up, we increase the flows to supply water to the diverters, and we get an excessive flow in the summertime. The Deschutes Basin was basically fully allocated from a surface water standpoint in 1914. Crooked River hydrogeology. So Crooked River is very, very different. And I included a plot here on the right. So here above, you've got your general groundwater flow in Deschutes formation type rocks. These are younger, pervious lavas, okay, for all intent and purposes, and volcaniclastics. They overlie units that we see in the Crooked River Basin. And this is an east-west transect for all intent and purposes, kind of a northeast-southwest. So this would be Crooked River Basin stuff over here. And we have, in the Crooked, we have much older geology, the Clarno, John Day formations. And they are also volcaniclastic formations. However, they're much older and they're weathered. And so what we end up with when we weather the minerals, we get clay deposits and really relatively impervious units. And if we cap that off, these units are the John Day and the Clarno are older and they get tectonically altered. So we don't see a layered cave type stratigraphy. We can't extrapolate vertically or laterally very well in that unit. And thus we end up with very low recharge, and it's basic for all intent and purposes, groundwater is difficult to find. Another feature of this older stuff, as far as non-recharge, is also the flashy runoff system. So in the Crooked Basin, we deal with very, very high, sharp flows in the spring runoff, and we depend almost solely on surface water and precipitation. And the big thing in the Crooked Basin is that we have it's a high elevation basin, but it's very, very low profile for all intent purposes. We have the Maoris and we have the Ochoas, but the bulk of the basin is flat. And so it makes a huge difference on how much runoff we get and what our water supply is over whether or not the precipitation in the wintertime falls as snow in the upper elevations and stays there, or it falls as water, as rain. And we get it, and it runs off during a time where we can't utilize that water without storing. So in general, our focuses in the region are principally water conservation through on-farm modifications and assistance, more efficient sprinklers, that kind of things, conveyance systems, things like that. Canal piping on a large scale for our conveyance systems to minimize our seepage and the loss, basically the conveyance losses we see in the basin. And to be able to measure a lot of these conservation issues and things, we actually have to measure, we've increased our gauging network. We have to keep track of, number one, storage, and now we're also keeping track of some other things that I'll address down here on the HCP. But we're also have groundwater needs for municipalities, and as you guys know, you've heard of the mitigation program. It's a function of our one-to-one relationship of groundwater and surface water. But we're struggling to meet the groundwater needs of our municipalities in our basin right now. And we're also working on methods to share water, which Angela's going to discuss later on in our talk. And then the big one that's kind of overarching that really isn't a part of us, to be all intent and purposes, from our monitoring and standpoint, is the Deschutes Basin Habitat Conservation Plan. And I don't know if many of you heard about the Deschutes Basin Habitat Conservation Plan, but in a nutshell, we have a couple listed species in the basin, and the spotted frog and the bull trout. And what we're trying to do is to basically provide the irrigators a get out of jail free card for their incidental takes on these species. And what that entails on the ground are specific timings of releases, volumes of releases that are out over and above what you would normally be assigned as a storage release, and we don't really have a use in the department to define that release for a habitat conservation plan. So these are kind of the policy things that we're kind of navigating in our basin at the moment. So in order to navigate a lot of these things, we've got 60 active gauging stations in the basin, and we've been adding 2 or 3 a year for the last 3 years. We monitor the inflows, outflows, and district diversions. Most notably, actually all of the district diversions as of about 2 months ago are measured in our basin, actually in the region. And we have a huge workload. We have lots of folks who are, we're measuring for not only for the users and accounting, but we're also measuring to satisfy a lot of these policy things like the Deschutes Basin Habitat Conservation Plan and a lot of the other things on behalf of the districts. We also have engaged, educated water user community. We really pride ourselves in putting our real-time data online. So as soon as we put in a new gauge like we did a couple months ago, we were rating it as fast as we possibly could to get those online so that the community could see what actually is being diverted. And then now the arithmetic down the stretch of river, Joe Blow at home can figure out and do the arithmetic and kind of get an idea of actually what's really happening out there. So like I mentioned, our most recent gauge that we just put in is at the Crooked River Central Canal. That's the picture of it right there. The cows jumped in the pool of water as soon as I put the weir boards in. But anyway, that's the most recent gauge that we have. We also have a temporary gauge on the Crooked River up above the North Unity Irrigation Canal pumps so that we can monitor the live flow and the protected water that is coming into the pumps rather than actually trying to decipher it as at Smith Rock and doing arithmetic. So we will actually know in real time what protected water and what storage water and available water is coming into the North Unit pumps and their diversions so that all the parties, and we can record a lot of that conservation success. Turn it over to Carolyn.
Chair Smitherman, members of the commission. For the record, this is Carolyn Suppet. I'm the Central Region Manager for the department. So what I'm going to do today is bring together all of these dynamics that Bill has been talking about to discuss the water accounting and tracking that really is the flagship of what our office does. As Bill has described, we have a very strong gauging network, and generally throughout the summer, most of our staff is engaged in measuring streams. Usually people have got 2 feet in a body of water somewhere. We're not just measuring stream flow. We are measuring the inflows into the basin, the outflows, and the district diversions that Bill has covered, and also reservoir contents. All of that data is put together, and then we have some math to do. The math includes counting our protected and conserved water and assigning evaporation and seepage losses to a lot of our outdated or infrastructure and the reservoirs. These loss factors come from an accumulation of basin studies or modeling, and some of it is decreed in a decree that's nearing 100 years old, actually. And then from the outputs of those calculations, we have legal considerations. So we're looking at all of our surface water users' rates and duties, figuring out which priority dates are available, who's in storage, and also monitoring flow requirements from agreements such as the HCP, our tribal water rights, and just local basin agreements. All the outputs of all of those calculations culminate in our basin storage reports. With both of our regions, both of our basins having fully allocated surface water, our basin storage reports are the regulation tools that both basins use. These storage reports have a very long and storied past. The Crooked River report is relatively new because it was carved off as a basin pretty recently, but the Deschutes Basin storage reports go back decades. There's so much history and data in those reports that, given the water budget for the year, we can usually accurately predict what our stream flow conditions are going to be throughout the irrigation season. By April 1st, when our irrigation season really kicks off, we generally know what our water budget is. This helps our water users make management decisions for their allotments and helps with other forecasting throughout the irrigation season. But mostly this is a tool for accountability and transparency to our water users and our basin partners. For the department, these tools, the storage reports are tools for regulatory compliance. And then most importantly, the data that has been garnered from these storage reports has helped inform policy and actions for water conservation efforts. Yep. Oop, 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 whoa, okay. There we go. Uh-oh.
Do your other one, I think that would be good.
Okay. All right, back in business. So I'm going to be covering the conservation efforts that happen in this region. And I would say that we are one of the regions that utilizes conservation more than any place else in the state. The first of these that we really dug into was the in-stream leasing program. Our partners, the Deschutes River Conservancy, launched their program in 1998. After a pretty modest start, you can see through this past 25 years or so that this program has maintained a very steady support from all of our region partners, even through periods of drought. The other conservation effort that was wildly successful in this region was the allocation of conserved water. To this day, about 2/3 of the water that has gone through this program has come from the Deschutes and Crooked basins. Together, the allocation of conserved water and the leasing program was the primary method of putting water in stream in our basin for the past 2 decades. However, the implementation of the HCP required a new a new mechanism to put water in stream. As you may be aware, the HCP has required winter flows out of Wickiup Reservoir during the storage season when our junior district, North Unit, is supposed to be storing their water. Wickiup Reservoir is the primary source of their irrigation water throughout the irrigation season. The irrigation districts united under the Deschutes Basin Board of Control came to the department and let us know that we were going to need to figure out a new way to share water in our basin. And this created the Deschutes Basin Alternative Pathway. The Deschutes Basin Alternative Pathway, the first version of it at least, was finalized at the end of last year. In this pathway, water that is usually put in stream in the middle Deschutes through conservation, through canal piping, is instead passed to North Unit as live flow during the irrigation season. In return, North Unit releases the same amount of water in the winter to help meet HCP benchmarks. Currently, with the amount of water that, or the amount of conserved water that is either, if the projects are either completed or funded, we are close to reaching 178 CFS, which is just a little over 200 or a little over 100 CFS short of our next HCP benchmark, which will happen in 2028 when our flows requirement goes from 100 CFS to 300 CFS. All of this conservation couldn't happen without a large amount of funding, which you guys are probably aware of. In Central Oregon, OWRD grants have provided $55 million for piping projects and helped leverage an additional 165 from other funders. When all these projects that are currently funded are complete, we will have piped 82 miles of open canals and restored over 100 CFS of stream flow. All of the conservation efforts come at a cost of also increased staff workload. We have to increase our gauging and our flow monitoring, increase our reporting and transparency to our water users and our partners, and make sure all of the legal requirements, basin agreements, and public benefit have been met. And these conservation efforts have come with significant challenges. I had a mentor who used to say that anything was possible with time and money, and we don't have enough of either of this. The full benefit of piping our systems can't be actualized until the systems are fully piped and we can receive, or the ranchers and farmers can receive pressurized water from the districts. That is a long time coming, and we have a long way to go. We've also run into problems with process flexibility. As I had alluded to before, the ACW program did not work for helping us put flows in the upper Deschutes in the winter. And that was how we ended up with the alternative pathway. Again, all of these conservation efforts require additional accounting and staff time to make sure the water is where it needs to be. And we have the confounding factor of climate change. If we continue to have extended periods of drought, if there's less water to be saved, then, well, if there's less water in the system, then there's less water to be saved. But all the conservation efforts have also been worth it. We have tangible results in the Middle Deschutes, Tumalo Creek, and Waichus Creek, restored stream flows that you can touch, see, and hear. We're also getting very close to meeting our next HCP benchmark. All of this work has also driven a history, I guess, of collaboration in this basin. This work could be exemplified with the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, which Angela will cover in a little bit. But all of the players in our basin, the partners, the environmental groups, the water users have poured their blood, sweat, and profanities into making these things happen. Finally, I'd like to hand this back over to Bill Nasham, our Crooked Basin Water Master, to talk about the Mackay Switch.
All right, Vice Chair Smitherman and Commission. One of the really cool projects, and I want to recognize the members of the DRC that are here that have also worked very hard on this project. And it's been a partnership between the Ochoco Irrigation District, the Deschutes River Conservancy, and the water right holders on Mackay Creek, tens of them. Lots of them. That's the Mackay Creek Basin. So we're looking at the Crooked River Basin right here. And the Mackay Creek Basin is that little blue area that's right up there in the north part of the basin. So what is the Mackay Switch? Well, the Mackay Switch is it's a process by taking surface water diverters and getting them out of the river and providing them with pressurized, reliable on-farm irrigation water. Because the DRC was able, and in conjunction with us too as well, was able to get 100% landowner participation, we have potentially 11.2 CFS of permanent water in Mackay Creek once this is finished. It'll include habitat restoration, and that 11.2 CFS of water will basically provide a natural hydrograph for the creek out of the, coming off of the Ochakos. And I'll show you where mile 6 is in this next slide. So here is kind of a close-up of the Prineville. I'm sorry, I'm using only one screen, but here is in the pink is the Ochoco Irrigation District boundary. This is the city of Prineville right here. And then you can see a yellow, I'll hold it with two hands. You can see a yellow line right here. That is the Crooked River Feed Canal. And so Bowman Dam and Prineville Reservoir are down over here on the lower right off the screen. So this is diverted water out of the Crooked River into Prineville to an existing pump facility. This is Mackay Creek, and that's mile 6. So the natural hydrograph, once we get all of those PODs, which are the white dots on Mackay Creek, and all those users off of the creek, we will have a natural hydrograph all the way into the basin at mile 6. Once the project is in place, the existing Mackay Creek PODs will be abandoned. And there was a lot of back and forth with our department as well as the DRC and the landowners. So it was kind of like a collaboration between us and the DRC to engage with a lot of the landowners who may have been unsure about whether or not they wanted to participate in the project and what those impacts would be to them, both positive and negative, to be frank. And so there was a lot of conversations in our office, a lot of meetings in our conference room with landowners that would come in multiple times a week, and we would discuss the water rights and what it would actually look like to them with the pressurized water and them out of the creek, and what it potentially would look like to them if they did not participate in the project. The project consists of a new pump station, a refurbished pump station here, and then this green line is a new pipeline and lift stations all the way up to here at the Mackay pump, and then this yellow is the pipe. So it will be a pipe that is in the valley with turnouts for all of the users to participate, and the NRCS is participating in the on-farm upgrades. And basically not even upgrades. They're subsidizing not only the water right transfer process, the DRC is, but they're also subsidizing to a certain extent all of the materials that they're going to need to get set up for the pressurized water. The availability of the pressurized water in this basin, and we're going to go back to the previous slides I discussed. You know, the Crooked River is a flashy system, and Mackay Creek is dry right now. And it's been dry for a month and a half. And so it's going to change the paradigm in this area. And it's going to be a really nice opportunity to have other drainages and systems visually see what the effect of having reliable pressurized water all season long is going to do. It's going to change. The paradigm in the valley is going to change. Down here, we are going to need to measure the 11.2 or actually keep track of how much water we're putting in stream. So this leads us to another one of our things for our future gauging needs, but we do need Mackay Creek gauges, and we're also looking into putting in future Ochoco Creek gauges just to measure the HCP water that is required in Ochoco Creek. We also have other gauges that we need to put in the future, and that we're looking at. We've already talked to landowners on the South Fork and other places. So anyway, so that's a really neat success story. And the contract was just signed 2 weeks ago for the construction, and the construction is due to begin in October. So, yay.
Okay, good afternoon. Vice Chair Smitherman and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Justin Iverson. I manage the groundwater section at WRD, and I'm going to be pinch presenting for Joe here this afternoon. Going to change gears here a bit and talk about groundwater level trends west of the Crooked River system back into the main Deschutes system. If you could forward one slide, please. Thanks. We wanted to give an update on groundwater level trends again in the main Deschutes basin. This slide shows Snowtell location at Three Creeks, bit south of Sisters, west of Bend, and the hydrograph in the upper right there shows the precipitation points or years, and the purple is the trend line that goes through them. So you can see that precipitation since from 1980 to present has followed a cyclic pattern over time. Now, close to the Cascade Crest around Sisters, we're showing the groundwater level response to that variable cyclical precipitation pattern. And you can see that in the lower right, the points are annual high water levels, again for a well near Sisters, and those levels rise and fall approximately 20 feet up and down over time, following the general pattern of the precipitation trend. Now, Bill talked at the beginning of the presentation about how most of the precipitation and the recharge to the groundwater system is focused along the Cascade uplands, and how that recharge gets attenuated through the groundwater system as you move east, where precipitation recharge drops off, and water levels in wells in the middle of the basin certainly show that. So in the black hydrograph here, well near Redmond, we see that in the 80s to 90s, water levels were roughly flat, and then about 1990, you can see the hydrograph turn down. And even during some of the wet periods around the late 90s, early 2000s, you see that the water level hydrograph kind of flattened off and then started to drop again. So we're been tracking these water level trends, and we're concerned about them. There's approximately 44 feet of head loss there near Redmond since 1990, and the recent trend continues dropping approximately 2 feet a year. So today in this update, we want to focus on the nexus of that trend with the new groundwater allocation rule. So next slide, please. So we've got just a snippet of the new rules that relate to this here. As a reminder, the new groundwater allocation rules defined what reasonably stable groundwater levels are for the full state. And we had an average rate of decline of less than half a foot a year. And we also had a total decline value of 25 feet from the highest known water level. And that was measured against again, the highest known water level, unless water levels were measurably increased by human activity, in which case the department can set a different level. So we've reposted the two hydrographs we just looked at here near Sisters. Water levels are reasonably stable. They rise and fall within the 25-foot envelope there over time with precipitation. But again, toward the middle of the basin, water levels are falling, and they aren't meeting either the decline rate or the total decline. And that's been observed for some time. There's been a number of studies done in the Deschutes, as I'm sure most of you are aware. One of those conducted in 2013 identified that water level decline between roughly 1997 or not roughly, between 1997 and 2008 in the vicinity of Redmond was attributed through groundwater modeling methods, about 60 to 70% due to a drying climate over time, about 20 to 25% due to pumping impacts, and about 5 to 10% due to canal lining. So we just heard about canal lining. It's a great conservation effort for surface water, and it can affect the groundwater recharge throughout the basin. So because that canal lining is a human activity, we along with the RAC and folks that were involved with helping us draft the new groundwater allocation rules, identified early on that they'd want us to take a look at the impacts of canal piping and lining on water level trends throughout the basin, and we are actively involved in that right now. So next slide. So we're conducting an assessment of canal leakage. Of course, it's never easy or as easy as one would hope when you set out to determine the relationships among these things. The biggest issue that we have in determining how much canal leakage has historically raised water levels in the basin is that the canal system was installed starting in the 1920s, and our first water levels of record are long past kind of the peak of canal diversions in the 60s. So while we have a few wells that go back as far as maybe the late 1940s, those wells don't happen to be in the middle of the basin. That blue hydrograph at the top of the figure in the lower right there is actually near Lapine. Similarly, the 3016 is near Sisters and kind of up gradient of the canal lining and piping. So really our kind of earliest long-term record comes from the black hydrograph here, Deschutes 3903, that's near Redmond. So our water level record does not match kind of when the impacts of the canal leakage took place. And so we've embarked on a program to collect all the available information that we have to attempt to model the impacts of canal leakage historically on the groundwater system. Next slide, please. And so we're in the middle of a process, again, for this canal leakage assessment. Our primary goal with this assessment is to look at, again, the impacts of canal leakage on historical water levels in order to apply the definition of reasonably stable groundwater levels appropriately in this area where canal leakage has effects. There are some secondary goals or some benefits that are come to this that'll come out of this work. It's going to help us provide updates or insights into other water budget changes, and we're planning to incorporate those into our statewide groundwater budgets project that is ongoing. So we've done a good deal of work in the past. We have updated our canal network lining and piping coverages, re-estimated seepage along the canals, which is what's shown in the figure here on the left. We're also updating groundwater pumpage estimates that were last done in 2013, and then comparing what we've identified as canal leakage reductions to observed water level changes, and kind of finally taking all that, putting it into a effort to model the groundwater system numerically with existing models from the past USGS studies and identifying the impact on water level from these activities. So we've been keeping others up to date as we go. So we've presented to the Deschutes Basin Water Conservancy, to the Groundwater Advisory Committee. We've pulled together an informal technical review team to guide our work or to provide further input and to make sure that we aren't missing anything, and had a lot of collaboration between Salem and the Bend office on this work as well. So we're looking to have a report with conclusions in the spring of 2026, and I assume we'll give the commission an update at that time. So that's where we're at today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission. My name is Angela Reinhold, Senior Water Advisor for Central Region. I just joined the department a few months ago, so this is my first commission meeting. So it's really a pleasure to be here and have this opportunity to talk with all of you. This is the home stretch of our 4-part presentation here, so thanks for your continued attention. I'll be talking with you about the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, just give you a bit of an overview and an update, and then as well as providing an update on the new Deschutes Basin Water Bank pilot program. The Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, as you may be aware, it's a mechanism for various interests in the basin to come together and collaborate on critical water allocation and management issues. It's about 50 members strong with a wide range of representatives from across the basin. The mission is to work together to achieve balanced water use here in the Deschutes Basin. The geographic focus of the collaborative for now is the upper and the middle Deschutes main stem, with the aim of expanding to cover the full basin in time as capacity allows. And the activities of the collaborative, there are a number, they're active on a number of fronts. They include coordination and communication projects like the irrigation modernization projects that Carolyn and Bill talked about. They support policies that align with the collaborative's mission, and they are leading the place-based planning effort. And that's what I'll be talking with you about in the next couple of slides. So this slide here shows on the left what the collaborative's planning steps are. Their 5-step process, which is aligned with the department's place-based planning process. They're on step 5 of 5 now, having already characterized water resources and the current and future needs through steps 2 and 3. And then in step 4, they developed a suite of tools, a menu of tools that could potentially be used to address those needs. And then now they are on this step where they need to build consensus and prioritize what are the tools and the actions and the target outcomes that will form their plan. So this is the most difficult step, the most time-consuming step. Carolyn's phrase, blood, sweat, and profanity probably resonates with this group too. And on the right is a timeline with some key milestones. So by the end of this year, they hope to have that 5th step complete. And then by the middle of next year, the plan will be finalized. And by the end of next year, they'll be looking to this commission for state approval. And from 2027 onward, they'll be continuing to implement their plan. We say continue here because a lot of the priority tools that are identified in the plan are already being implemented in the basin. This is a really active group. They have a staff team, a planning team, and a working group that meet 2 weekly, monthly, or quarterly, depending on the group, and the department participates in all of those meetings. We're also able to provide support through technical subcommittees that we participate in. Justin mentioned some work being done through the groundwater subcommittee, and we provide data information as needed and requested by the collaborative. So they're doing a lot of work, and we're able to support them in some of their efforts. What are they focusing on? The collaborative often talks about the work that they do and the work they prioritize as the 3 legs of the stool. So those 3 legs are rivers, agriculture, and communities. So the priority work in each of those areas are restoring river flows and improving water quality and watershed health. For agriculture, they're working to shore up water supply for junior districts like North Unit, who we heard from this morning, and then meet the goals of the Habitat Conservation Plan. And for communities and cities, their focus is meeting long-term demand And then central to that is understanding groundwater conditions and working to stabilize aquifer levels. Justin showed us what the levels are doing in some parts of the basin, which is very much a concern for cities. Some of the key tools that have been identified to address the needs are canal piping, the groundwater mitigation program, and the water bank. So Bill and Carolyn talked about canal piping, and then the next couple of slides, I will very lightly touch on the mitigation program, just really through the lens of the collaborative. And then I'll talk about water banking here and the Deschutes tools that have been used for a long time and some of the new tools that are emerging. So the groundwater mitigation program is a priority for the collaborative for a couple of reasons, including those shown here. It's essential for cities to secure water to meet demand, both by building out the groundwater permits that they already have and securing new groundwater rights as needed. And then the mitigation program is also an important tool for in-stream flow restoration in the basin because it provides a great incentive and mechanism for senior rights holders to put water in stream. So I understand about 40 CFS have permanently gone in stream in the middle Deschutes, in large part through mitigation program transactions. So the total groundwater to be allocated under the mitigation program is capped at 200 CFS. And this pie chart here shows how we're tracking for allocation against that cap. So to date, 160 CFS have been allocated. And then the applications that are currently pending total more than 40 CFS. So if we add those together, we get very slightly more than 200 CFS. So in addition to cap considerations, we also have a looming sunset of January 2029. So in this meeting, we just wanted to flag these things for your attention, let you know that they are a high priority and will be for the 2027 legislative session. We're doing work currently to evaluate the program and to explore future options. That work is ongoing. We anticipate that this is going to be a big area of work in moving forward. So as we continue with that work, we'll be briefing the commission. So now on to the subject of water banking. Market-based mechanisms for moving water around have been used in the Deschutes for a long time, for decades. Carolyn showed some slides about our in-stream leasing program, but there are some couple of new tools that are emerging. So House Bill 3806 was signed into law by the governor this summer, and it authorizes the Water Resources Commission to approve a charter for an 8-year pilot water banking program that would be operated by the Deschutes River Conservancy. So this pilot program encourages the use of existing pathways to move water around, and it also authorizes a couple of new pathways. So we'll look at what are the existing mechanisms and what are these new mechanisms under House Bill 3806. So market-based tools that are already in use in the Deschutes are in-stream leasing, permanent in-stream transfers, and then mitigation banking that translates that leased and transferred water into mitigation credits for groundwater use. And the benefits of these existing pathways are flow restoration in the middle Deschutes in summer, and then also in the case of the mitigation program, water supplies for cities. So these existing and established banking mechanisms will continue to be used. So what's new under House Bill 3806? There's 2 new pathways, and this is one of them, pooled fallowed acres. So under this new mechanism, those in senior districts that want to voluntarily fallow their acres for the upcoming, or some acres for the upcoming irrigation season, can elect to do so and transfer the water associated with those acres into the bank in exchange for compensation. And then that water is shared between North Unit and the Middle Deschutes River at a 75-25 split. And the water that goes to North Unit will be made available to them in bulk rather than being pertinent to specific parcels of land. So it affords NUID a lot more flexibility than they have when they get water, say through the temporary transfers program now. So it's a nice flexible supply of water for North Unit. This mechanism can only be used after 1,800 acres have been leased in stream through the in-stream leasing program. And the idea here is not to backslide on the gains that have been made to restore flows in the middle Deschutes. So once that 1,800 acre threshold has been reached, this mechanism can be used. And the benefits are that flexible supply to North Unit, the summer flows to the middle Deschutes, and then to the extent that that 25% going to the middle Deschutes can be used for mitigation credits, it would also benefit cities. And so this pathway here is expected to be the focus of the initial bank activity. And then the second pathway, it's a split rate, split duty mechanism where on-farm duty can be reduced and then the balance transferred to the bank in exchange for compensation. So if I'm a farmer and I normally receive 4.2 acre feet per acre, I can elect to invest in efficiency improvements and use less water. If I've already invested in efficiency improvements, I can use less water. So instead of taking that 4.2, I can take 2.2 and then transfer that remaining 2 in acre feet per acre into the bank for compensation. And through this mechanism, the water that goes into the bank is shared with North Unit. 100% of that water goes to North Unit during the irrigation season in exchange for equal release from Wickiup in the winter. Again, this can only be used after that 1,800 acre threshold that's leased is met. So the benefits to this program, again, are supply to North Unit, winter flows in the upper Deschutes. So here we're not talking about summer flows in the middle Deschutes, which is traditionally where conserved water goes and banked water goes, but winter flows in the upper Deschutes. So it will contribute to meeting the Habitat Conservation Plan goals that Carolyn and Bill talked about. Another benefit is that it provides an incentive for on-farm efficiency. Now, this mechanism requires precise measurement, including metered delivery on farm and tight accounting by districts. So readiness for this pathway is considered limited right now, but it could be scaled as districts are piped in the future. So what needs to happen to operationalize the water bank? First, the charter needs to be approved by the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And so the charter for the bank has been drafted and shared with the tribes for their review. And then the next step in the process is for the charter to be approved by the commission. And in the most optimistic and ambitious versions of events, you would see this in December, which is what would need to happen to operationalize the bank in 2026. So quite a bit needs to happen between now and then. So we're not sure we'll meet this target, but that's the goal. After that, an annual operating plan is approved by the department. And then from there, the bank is operated by the Deschutes River Conservancy in coordination with other partners and participants as per that year's annual operating plan. And House Bill 3806 specifies that the bank can only be operated if the department has sufficient resources to carry out the duties as required in those annual operating plans. And so my final slide here is just a summary of the fiscal impact statement for House Bill 3806. There'd be a new NRS 3 would be required. That person would need to be engaged to carry out the workload for the department associated with those bank duties. That includes reviewing annual operating plans, which involves coordination with the public and with the tribes and with Fish and Wildlife. Also reviewing postseason reports, processing applications, and distributing and legally protecting water that's loaned through the bank. So the associated budgets are for this biennium, assuming a January 2026 start, is $216,000. For the next biennium, a full biennium, it's closer to $288,000. And general funds have not been provided for this position, so other funds are needed to fill this position. that brings us to the end of Central Region's presentation. So thank you for your attention, and we'll be happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you so much. That's a lot to think about. You guys have been doing an incredible amount of work, and I know a lot has been going on in this basin for a very long time. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Lee?
Yes, back in March, I had asked about what was left in the mitigation bank because we've talked several years about changing the program, perhaps raising the cap. And at that point, there was a deficit of almost 5 CFS. Are you thinking that the banking program may be the tool that provides additional water without raising the cap, or is there still interest in looking at raising it?
Thank you, Commissioner Lee, Vice Chair Smitherman, and members of the commission. That's a really good question, Commissioner Lee, and it's sort of the question on everybody's minds here in the basin right now is that question of whether the cap is to be raised and then whether the sunset date is to be extended are, you know, what everyone wants to know right now. And those are the very questions that are being discussed by various work groups. So the person who sat in my chair before I got here, Emily McCain, she was coordinating an effort within the department to explore that question. So kind of did some scoping of work and broke the work down into sort of 3 phases and identified a number of players, internal and external. And so those discussions are being had, but definitely that's one of the key questions on the table is about raising that cap.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mall? I know you want to ask one.
I wrote down 14 questions. I'm not kidding. So I'll just leave it. My questions are a little bit around timing. I'm trying to understand the timing of all of these things. So for example, we went out this morning and we learned that there were periods when many of those producers were forced to fallow simply by climatic conditions. So under the, am I cut off?
You're done for today. Thank you, Commissioner Mall. Please continue. I'm not sure what that was.
Somebody's at the door. So you're forced to follow. So am I, as a farmer who's forced to follow because of climatic conditions, now going to be eligible to sort of get compensated through the bank? That seems a little generous. So that's one. The other is that I hadn't really thought of until today is even with the agreement with North Unit and the winter live flows. I think, well, wait a minute. When is one determined? When is the flow that is to be released from the lake determined? Is it prior to or after a good or bad year? So that it's those mechanics, and I don't know, maybe this should just be parking lotted, because that could be, maybe that's a later afternoon discussion, or maybe within the context of the grant applications that we're dealing with, but those are on my mind. And then one, similarly, Justin, for you, this is a much longer time frame, but you've coached us for years in areas where we have cones of depression. Am I understanding that the analysis that you all are doing and are going to present to us perhaps next spring around the impact of the piping is with the assumption that with canal development up and peaking in the 1960s, we somehow inflated the groundwater? So there was some sort of the opposite of a cone of depression. And now we're bound to say, well, we can't really enforce because our laws say 25-foot decline or whatever from the highest known, or what that highest known should have been if we hadn't been digging canals and having impact on groundwater. Am I understanding that right? Because that also seems really generous considering the situation that we're in. Maybe that's a question. The others, maybe the others we could parking lot, but would you be willing to address that one?
Sure. Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioner Mall, and members of the commission. So Yes, first part of the question is yes, with canal development, especially because those canals leaked significantly, that water goes back into the system, and that has caused some amount of rise in the regional water table. That rise has also increased spring discharge in the lower Deschutes, lower Crooked system. And I believe that we actually have some records that show increased flow kind of before Pelton Dam was put in that captured that. So it has affected the system. It's taken basically flow that was going down the Deschutes and spread that through these canal networks that infiltrated water into the drier part of the system, as well as just on-farm return flows have also contributed. So the goal of this project that we're working on now is to tease out the human-caused impacts from the impacts of climate variability or long-term change, as well as the impacts of increased pumping over time. So I wouldn't say that we can't, just because we've altered the hydrology everywhere, right? So it's just using best available information to tease out what the amount was, because while we were thinking of that among other scenarios, I don't know if you recall, but I think the scenario I presented last year this time was actually the putting up the Pelton Dam, and Lake Billy Chinook came up, and we have water levels that came up with Lake Billy Chinook, and we didn't want to take this reference value and then rise it way up because of that, or because of a nearby ASR well, or what have you. So we put that in for several reasons, and that just means that we've got more analysis to do to kind of parse that out. So does that answer your question sufficiently?
Yeah, it gets me thinking. I think it just reassures me that I'm thinking about it at least in a reasonable manner. I mean, the reason I consider it generous is I feel like, again, from an integrated water resource strategy standpoint, so much of what we're dealing with are species and communities and individuals that are on the margins. And if in the name of having some great standard, the 25-foot decline from highest known or whatever we choose, and say, well, that's where it was, we're going to assume it's that, and therefore we're going to allow more withdrawal or other things, in the grand scheme of things, I feel like species, systems, and people on the margins are going to get whacked again, which is ultimately what we don't want to happen. So I don't, maybe we can just sort of parking lot that too for the next couple, 3 meetings, because I think the implications of it from a policy implementation standpoint could be pretty significant. Maybe not, maybe it's much ado about nothing. Thank you, that helps.
Commissioner Mull, I'll address one of your questions, if that's all right. You'd asked about the pool fallowed acres and whether North Unit, if they're in a situation where they're being forced to fallow, are then eligible to put those acres in the bank. And as I understand it, this mechanism is it's targeting senior districts. So it's targeting districts who would not be curtailed even in drought years. So they wouldn't be in a situation where they'd be forced to fallow. They would be opting in to do that with water available, so that they're then passing wet water to the stream into North Unit.
I see. Thank you. That's very helpful. Does that mean that it would also be nimble enough to be able to do that within the context of, oh shit, we've got a really bad water year, junior users are really being hurt, I'm okay, so I'm going to participate? It could happen that quickly. Great. Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, I think it needs to just happen by, I think the annual operating plan needs to be submitted by January. So it would need to happen that far in advance. It couldn't happen later in the season. I think by January, the particular parcels of land will have been identified. All the players will have been identified. So there's limited flexibility in terms of the timeline within an irrigation season.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? I I just wanted a clarification. You mentioned at the end there about the water bank, and so the money that people are going to get paid for, banking, that's coming from what was approved in House Bill 3806, is that right? Where's
so-
that money come from?
Yeah, this comes from, and then this is, I'm kind of looking back here where the Deschutes River Conservancy folks are, who are a lot more savvy on this front. But no, that's not the money that was in this fiscal impact statement. That is specifically for the department, the resources needed for the department to support the effort. So the money, as I understand it, that's used to compensate, it's sort of those who want to purchase the water. So in this
Yeah.
case, North Unit is
Okay.
expected to pay for the water and to create the funds then to pay those that are contributing the water.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And then with that, do we anticipate being able to get an employee to lead this program at some point in the future? I know you mentioned that we don't have a staff person to do that. But by 2026, 27, I know maybe that's a loaded question, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the intent, I think the department is ready to do that just as soon as those funds materialize. So I think we could move pretty quickly on engaging someone. It's just a question of those funds being available.
It's exciting to see this pilot program get started, see where it goes. So really appreciate the presentation today, all 4 presentations. It's a lot of great information, very excellent. And thank you for all of your work in this region. And I was really looking forward to hearing this today. So thank you for the update.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I don't believe we have any public comment on this. Is everyone ready for a break? Okay, let's take a 15-minute break. Be back. We're here, getting ready to go. Okay, we are jumping back to agenda item C, feasibility study grants and funding recommendations.
All right, Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioners, just wanted to take a moment to reintroduce myself first, since I wasn't able to join you for the Pendleton meeting right after I joined the department. Maggie Summer, new administrator for our Planning, Collaboration, and Investments Division. Delighted to be here. I am based out of the Salem office. Been here since right before the June meeting, so early June.
Welcome to the
Appreciate
team.
the chance to introduce myself again, and I will turn it over to Adair for the presentation.
When it's red, it's working. At the bottom.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Adair Muth. I'm the grants manager at OWRD, and I am joined by our grants analyst online, Louisa Mariki. And we are here to present the feasibility study grants funding recommendations and some program updates. So this effort is in support of recommended action 13.D from the Integrated Water Resources Strategy to invest in feasibility studies for water resources projects. Within OWRD, this work is done in our Planning, Collaboration, and Investments section. In PCI, as we call it for short, we use numerous tools to build partnerships and incentivize Oregonians to pursue integrated and innovative solutions for complex water challenges and an uncertain water future. And one of the ways that we do this is our strategic investments. Within the department, we have 7 funding opportunities, and a number of them are organized in a way to build a trajectory of support so folks can understand and identify the problems and identify opportunities for water in their area through place-based planning. They can then investigate the feasibility of pursuing different options through feasibility study grants, and then they can pursue funding to implement those solutions through water project grants and loans. We are here today to talk about our feasibility study grant program. The purpose of this program is to provide funding to evaluate the feasibility of a water conservation, reuse, or storage project. We offer these grants on an annual cycle. So usually applications are due in the spring and the funding decision is made in the fall. So the purpose of a feasibility study is to assess the practicality of a proposed project. And it can be used to determine if and how a project should proceed to implementation. A feasibility study focuses on helping to answer the essential question of should we proceed with the proposed project idea. Before we talk about this year's funding cycle, I wanted to provide some program updates. So first on the Division 601 rules, and then also on House Bill 3364. And I promise this is related to feasibility study grants. So as a reminder, the Division 601 rules are the best practices in community engagement for funded water projects. The commission adopted these rules in March and June of this year. And funding will now be available for community engagement through our feasibility study grant program. The focus of those community engagement plans will need to be determining the feasibility of a water conservation, reuse, or storage project. If folks would like to request community engagement funds, they will fill out the normal feasibility study grant application, and then there will be an additional section of the feasibility study grant application specific to community engagement and what they are proposing to do. So currently we have in development those application questions. We're developing review criteria that we'll be able to provide to our application review team, and then also developing some application guidance for applicants. We also wanted to provide an update on House Bill 3364 and specifically the changes that this House bill has on our feasibility study grant program. It also includes changes to water project grants and loans, but we're not going to focus on those today. This bill was passed in the 2025 legislative session. It goes into effect 91 days, sine die, so it goes into effect at the end of this month. And on the slide are the changes that it makes to the feasibility study grant program. So first, it expands the types of projects that can be funded to include aquifer recharge, aquifer storage and recovery, stream flow restoration or protection, and other activities as identified by rule of the Water Resources Commission. So this now will align our feasibility study grant program with our water project grants and loans program and the types of activities that we can fund. It also removes the $500,000 cap on funding for a study. Currently, folks can only get up to $500,000 for a study, and it removed that cap. It also reduces the match requirement from 50% to 25%. So folks will only need to bring 25% match to the table instead of 50. This also aligns our funding opportunities. 25% is what is required with water project grants and loans. It also changes the name of the fund to the Water Project Feasibility Fund to reflect its expanded scope and purpose. Currently, the name of the fund is the Water Conservation, Reuse, and Storage Fund. A few more changes that it makes. It does have some changes to the eligible entities to align with Water Project Grants and Loans program, but I'll note it doesn't change who is eligible. It just makes that language consistent. And then it also adds new eligible activities, including the development of water management and conservation plans, data collection and analysis for seasonally varying flows, safety analyses of existing dams, and environmental justice and community impact analyses. So we will need to do rulemaking for our feasibility study grant program to update our rules to incorporate these new changes. The timeline on that rulemaking is to be determined, as we have a lot of other rulemakings that we're currently undertaking within the department. So our next steps for incorporating both the 601 community engagement rules and the changes to the feasibility study grant program, we are incorporating all of that into our next funding cycle, which we're anticipating opening sometime this fall. Applications will again be due in March, so we'll have a similar time frame as this past cycle, and then funding decisions next September. And we're really excited to note that we are launching a new grants online platform where folks will be able to apply online, and we will be getting rid of our paper applications. So the program the platform is designed to improve the application experience, streamline application or communications with both our applicants and our grantees, and provide us better tools for managing grants. So it'll be better for both, more efficient for both grantees and department staff. So really excited about that change. So moving into our 2025 funding cycle and recommendations. This is the application review process. I know you've seen this slide before, but just as a reminder, applications are due in the spring. So this year that was March 12th, 2025. Those applications are reviewed by a multi-agency application review team. So this year that was made up of Department of Environmental Quality, Oregon Department of Agriculture, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Business Oregon, OWRD, and Business Org, Department of State Lands. That was the sixth one. Normally we have Oregon Health Authority, but they were unable to participate this year. So we had 6 members. So the first thing that the application review team does when they meet together is determine to fund or do not fund, and I'll talk about that vote in the subsequent slide. They then score the applications that are recommended to vote to fund, and they make an initial funding recommendation. That funding recommendation is then put out for a 30-day public comment period. And then we come to you to award funding based on the application review team's recommendations and any public comments received. So I mentioned the vote on the previous slide. So when the application review team meets to talk about these applications and proposals, the first thing they do is take a vote based on three things. So they take a fund, do not fund vote, considering first, is the proposal a feasibility study? Or is it actually research, or is it implementation? If it is not a feasibility study, they would vote no. The second item that they're voting on is the proposal ready for funding? Do they see that there's sufficient details in there to show that the applicant is ready to do this study and achieve their goal? If it's not, that would be a no vote. And then the third item is water available? We don't want to fund studies if we already know that water is not available, but it is okay if that is a question of the feasibility study, if they're looking to see if water is available. So those are the three items that warrant the fund, do not fund vote. Projects that receive a fund vote are then scored on the study goal, the water need, the community benefit, and the technical planning and preparedness. Projects are ranked by score and recommended for funding based on funding availability. With that, I am going to turn over the presentation to Louisa.
Thank you, Adair. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioners. Again, for the record, my name is Louisa Mariki, and I'm a grants analyst with the department. So the submitted applications were evaluated for completeness after the application deadline, and we had received 5 complete applications requesting just over $1 million, and there is about 1.5 million available for award. Here we have an overview of the 5 complete studies and the requested funding amounts for each of them. We received 3 below ground studies and 2 conservation studies this cycle for consideration. The ART recommends funding 4 of the 5 studies. They did not recommend funding the Deschutes Basin Water Bank feasibility study. If approved by the commission, the department would immediately enter into grant agreements with the awardees. The department hosted a 30-day public comment period on the ART's funding recommendations from July 1st through the 30th. 2 public comments were received during this period. Tribes were notified of the ART's recommendation and invited to provide comments for consideration, but no tribal comments were received. The first comment we received was in support of the Corbett Aquifer and Recovery Reassessment proposal from various stakeholders. The second comment was from Trout Unlimited on the evaluation of water conservation projects that claim in-stream benefits. They recommend that applicants claiming those in-stream benefits also address the feasibility of legally protecting water. In addition to the comments received during the public comment period, it's our understanding that the commission received 2 written comments this week regarding the Deschutes Basin Water Bank feasibility study, which is not recommended for funding by the application review team. The first letter was from 5 legislators requesting that the commission approve funding for the study in light of new information from the 2025 legislative session. And the second letter was from the applicant, the Deschutes River Conservancy, requesting the commission to consider the study proposal as fitting within the feasibility study grant criteria and approving funding. We will talk more about this specific proposal in a little bit. Next, I'm going to go over the applications that were recommended for funding, as well as the one that was not. As a reminder, applications were evaluated based on the study goal, the water need, community benefits, and technical planning and preparedness. So the first study we have was from Corbett Water District, and it's the Corbett Aquifer Storage Recovery Feasibility Reassessment Study. They're asking for about $158,000. The proposed study would reassess the feasibility of using aquifer storage and recovery to develop an emergency drinking water source for the district. The next study, we have the Lacombe Irrigation District Water Conservation Study from Farmers Conservation Alliance in Lynn County. They are requesting about $249,000. And the proposed study would evaluate the feasibility of converting 3.5 miles of main canal into buried pipeline and upgrading the district's fish screen facility. The city of Molalla submitted an application for an aquifer storage and recovery feasibility study. They are requesting just over $200,000. And their proposed study would assess the feasibility of using aquifer storage and recovery to develop a supplemental drinking water source for the city. The final study recommended for funding is the natural aquifer recharge in the Upper Klamath and Coos and Coquille Basins feasibility study proposed by the Nature Conservancy. They are requesting $100,000. The proposed study would evaluate what conditions are necessary for implementing natural aquifer recharge projects in Upper Klamath, the Coos, and Coquille basins. As described earlier in the presentation, the application review team takes a fund, do not fund vote on each proposal, considering three things. First, they consider whether the proposal is a feasibility study, or is it research or implementation? They also consider if the proposal is ready for funding or if it's lacking detail. And third, they also consider whether water is available or if part of the study is to determine this. During the ART meeting, all 6 reviewers unanimously found the proposal to be an implementation project and not a feasibility study. During the discussion, the reviewers noted that the proposal centers on developing a water bank and expanding on already existing efforts, rather than assessing whether a water bank is feasible. They also highlighted that the application outlined tasks and information that suggest feasibility has already been determined. Reviewers also highlighted that the activities outlined in the proposal, thanks Adair, in the proposal aligned more closely with implementation and program development. Next slide, please. The alternatives that we would like to present to you today for consideration are to adopt the ART funding recommendation contained in Table 2 of the staff report to fund 4 applications for a total award of $709,504, to adopt a modified funding recommendation, or to direct the departments to further evaluate applications and return with a revised recommendation. The director recommends alternative 1, to adopt the ART's funding recommendation contained in Table 2 of the staff report to fund 4 applications for a total award of $709,504. Thank you for your time. We are happy to take we're happy to take any questions and provide you with any answers.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I would really like to see the DRC project be funded this round. I think that there's a lot more to be done in regard to feasibility to make this something that could be accomplished in other basins as well. It meets all of the priorities, it meets several special priorities for the department. And I just think that going ahead with it now will make it workable to resolve some of the issues in the basin, as well as lay out a format for other basins.
Other commissioners, Commissioner Mall?
So, I've got a couple questions back to before we considered the actual applications this round that for me at least are relevant on the decision. There's a couple of things. Do you know why the cap was removed?
Commissioner Mall and members of the commission, I believe it was removed because it was seen as a barrier. The cap was put into place at the beginning of the program and costs have gone up a lot. So I believe that is why the cap is removed. And there is language, I believe there's language in statute that the commission could put a cap in rule. We saw that as more flexible. If it was in rule, it would be easier to change than if it was in statute.
Interesting. Oh, I see. The cap was in statute.
The cap was in statute, correct?
And that leads to the second part of my question was there was that little footnote that said that rulemaking still needs to occur for 3364 to get implemented.
Commissioner Mull, members of the commission, great question. When rule and statute don't align, which in this case they won't, we will follow statute. So we will need to update our rules, because a lot of what is in our feasibility study grant rules just mirrors what's in statute. So statute said 50% match, our rules say 50% match. So we will follow statute and update the rules as soon as we can.
And rulemaking, is that going to be a part of the multi-process rulemaking we're going to be looking at in December?
Vice Chair Smitherman, Commissioner Mall, I'm not sure that was going to be included in the water right transfer.
No? Okay.
No.
Not a nose back there. All right, so the reason I feel like all these are, for me at least, relevant is that if we were to do what Commissioner Lee has recommended, I feel like we're suggesting that staff not follow the current framework, which I, of all people, have argued frequently that we need to be much more flexible. But I feel a little uncomfortable because of that it puts staff currently saying, we're going to run a program now anticipating these changes that we will be able to do after rulemaking occurs, which could take 6 months to a year. I would maybe they're administrative. You don't have to answer that, but that's my concern. Because I'm not familiar with the specifics of it. Is there any way we could get a briefing from the Deschutes River Conservancy on what the impact would be if we were to go with option one, and whether or not, I think the report recommended, I think the reviewers recommended that they go to OWEB for implementation dollars. Now we just appreciate, based on the comment letters we got and others, knowing, well, what are we talking about here? If it's approved today, or it is suggested that they reapply and it's a year from now, what are the impacts on what they're able to do? Is that possible to get that?
Commissioner Newman, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question that relates to what Joe just said. My understanding of what Adair said is that the rulemaking to conform the rules with the changes in the statute would not change the basic component of this grant pot, right? I mean, it would still be a feasibility grant. And I noticed, I mean, some of the activities that it said were added. I assume those are activities within an overall feasibility grant. Okay, so I mean, it's interesting that we are getting information, suggesting that we do fund this project, but I share your reservation that, or different reservation, I guess, that if the whole ART said this is not a feasibility project, it's an implementation project, either some more conversation has to happen with the grant applicant to clarify why they think it's a feasibility project, or we're encouraging other grant applicants to come around that or do an end run around the ART. And it seems like that process has worked pretty well as far as screening out the important information for us to look at.
Director Gall, do you want to add to that?
Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission. I think, and I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Newman, about respecting the ART's recommendation. I haven't read in detail yet the comments that have just recently come in to support the DRC's application. There is an opportunity for the commission to recommend that the department go back and take a closer look at that with the new information that's been submitted and come back with a recommendation at the next commission meeting. So that's something else that you may consider as an option.
And so just for clarification, even if the rules were updated, likely the decision would still stand. That this is not a feasibility study, or if rules were, I'm getting a nod, but yes, if rules were updated, this still under the current rules and the statute, it still wouldn't be funded under this program.
Vice Chair Smitherman and members of the commission. Yes, I think that is correct. The ART found it was implementation, not feasibility. So the new rules wouldn't change that. The new statute and rule wouldn't change. It's still only funding feasibility. So I guess the question is, yeah, I'll leave it at
Yeah,
that.
go ahead and leave it at that. So following up on that, you mentioned that the new rules are allowing for the development of WMCPs, water management and conservation plans. How exactly does that work as a feasibility study?
Vice Chair
In my
Smitherman.
mind,
I'm
that's
gonna touch
implementation
on that one.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but in my mind, I can't really see how WMCP, is something that needs to be implemented, and not sure how a feasibility study would apply.
Yeah. Vice Chair Smitherman and members of the commission. So my understanding is, as it's a new activity that's allowed, so it would still have to be part of a feasibility study, but it would be an allowable activity to also update their water management conservation plan.
At the same time,
At the
they were
same
doing
time. Correct.
feasibility study. Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other comments or questions from commissioners? Go ahead,
I'm
Commissioner
sorry,
Mell.
Chair, I'm just wondering, as a matter of practice, can we not ask the DRC folks here today to address some of, especially the timing issue? I mean, that's within our.
I know that Kate Fitzpatrick is signed up for public comment. As a matter of process, are we allowed to hear from her before we make our final vote?
Sounds
Okay.
like.
Okay. Then Kate Fitzpatrick, would you mind coming up to the front from Deschutes River Conservancy? Thank you.
Hi. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Smitherman and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Kate Fitzpatrick, Executive Director of the Deschutes River Conservancy. The DRC's mission is to restore stream flow and water quality to the basin using collaboration and community-based approaches. We appreciate the opportunity to comment today. We recognize that commenting outside the designated comment period for the grant funding recommendation is not ideal for staff or commissioners, and we just think that some changed circumstances and the larger picture of this pilot program, both fits into feasibility as well as state priorities and merits reconsideration. Hopefully my comments will answer some of your questions, and I'm happy to add more thoughts if that's helpful. But as you know, we submitted a feasibility grant proposal that was deemed not to be feasibility, but more implementation.
proposal goals, as you've seen, are to work with partners on alternatives to provide a formalized structure for the temporary reallocation of water rights using voluntary market-based incentives. Bank activities would be designed to provide benefit to agricultural users, in-stream flows, and municipal water providers. While many partners in the Deschutes Basin are actively working towards this vision, significant program design questions remain. And ultimately, the feasibility of the program is contingent on finding agreement on a number of these issues that are not yet resolved. These include a bank governance structure, a pricing structure, agreement on outreach and transactions development, and the volume of water that might be transacted in the pilot program. To be frank, when I looked at the Lacombe project, that was the piping project that was approved for feasibility, it doesn't seem dissimilar to me that it identifies a project that it thinks it wants to do. It just doesn't know exactly how much water or how much it will cost yet. I see that as very similar to the situation that we're in. I also think it might be a harder project to evaluate because it doesn't fit so neatly into a box of an infrastructure project. It's really an innovative program trying to increase the use of water transfers like we talked about as a state priority. And sometimes those aren't as simple as an engineering feasibility, which leads to an implementation. And when I look at your pipeline of grant programs, I think the intention is to get you to implementation. The feasibility grant language in the application guidance reads that it is to determine if and how a project should proceed to the implementation phase. And as I mentioned, there are many hows left to be determined. To be frank, if we can't figure out these hows in a way that works with our irrigation district partners and others, we're not going to have an if. I think there's actually a partner or two in this room that we have to do a lot of work to even get this thing off the ground. So we also don't believe the proposal would be eligible for project implementation funding because we don't have quantified water supply outcomes and cost effectiveness numbers yet. So we wouldn't be able to apply for a water supply grants and loans or an OWEB water acquisitions grant yet. So there's we're seeing if you're not deeming this to be feasibility, we're seeing a pretty big gap in the funding program to get projects on the ground. And although it doesn't fit within a traditional box of infrastructure, we believe it does align with recurrent themes that we keep hearing that the state has prioritized. And these themes include sharing and optimizing a limited resource, multi-benefit approaches that balance in-stream and out-of-stream needs, voluntary, collaborative, and market-based approaches, integrated and adaptive water planning and management systems, and basin-specific progress and innovation. So in addition to the fact that we believe this does fit the feasibility criteria, we wanted to share some recent developments, almost changed circumstances that have occurred since we submitted the grant in March that in our minds elevate the priority and the timeliness of this project. On July 18th, the governor signed into law House Bill 3806, as you've heard, which authorizes a water bank pilot program in the Deschutes for 8 years. This is the culmination of extensive work with multiple partners in the basin. And it gives the state some new banking tools, and Angela did a great job sharing what those are. But I think in the sense of the project being designated a pilot program, I think pilot is the definition of feasibility. We're trying to see if this works and see what we can learn from it as a state. And then one more wrinkle I'll share with you related to money. Given the state budget constraints during the legislative session, the final bill did not include funding to support the pilot because we didn't want it to get caught up in Ways and Means and not pass. Our priority was for the bill to pass. And in addition to that, the fiscal impact statement, as you've heard, identifies the need for additional state capacity to run the program. And again, in hopes that the agency capacity issue would not create an outright barrier to passing the bill, we were okay with the legislators adding language that would allow the state to accept outside funding if needed to get the program off the ground, with the expectation that that funding would come or could come from the DRC. We just heard this last week that the full amount of funding would be expected to get even a very small pilot project off the ground. So we very much understand and appreciate the state budget constraints, and we are always advocating for more funding for the agency. But it just underlines the importance of the proposed feasibility grant funding. If we were awarded state funds for our continuing work on the program, we could look at repurposing existing funds that we have through federal sources to help fund the state to help us run the program. So again, we find ourselves at kind of this odd convergence of needing to fund state capacity to continue the pilot while being denied existing state funds to continue program feasibility and development. And in light of the passage of 3806, we respectfully ask the commission to consider funding the proposal. We greatly appreciate the long history of partnership with the state and are optimistic that the Water Resources Department will continue to be a strong partner with us as we use the new legislation to develop the pilot program. Thank you for your time, and I'm available to answer any additional questions.
Commissioner Newman?
I see that the comments submitted by the legislators, I mean, they seem to be describing something that they want and that they thought they were doing by amending the program, and maybe they didn't fully do it. I mean, in other words, they talk about, we think there needs to be something to fund bridging between pure feasibility and implementation. And then they give all kinds of reasons of why they think this project fits that. I mean, it feels like I don't know that they did clearly legislate what they thought they were. But I guess I go back to Joe's comment or questions about timing. You know, if we as a commission sent this proposal back to staff to do further work and get a clear understanding of how it could fit into the feasibility studies as they are currently codified and reflected in rules. Is that a problem? I mean, or
Vice Chair Smitherman and Commissioner Newman and commissioners, that's a great question. Respectfully, my opinion is that the project fits within the current feasibility rules. So to me, that's not the question at hand for me. I wasn't intimately involved with the legislative fixes last session or what the intention was, but I do believe the state, and there was a slide up here, wants there to be a pipeline that gets water projects going on to implementation. We're not at implementation yet, so I don't know what else you would call it. I would be curious to hear why the ART, more about why they didn't think it was a feasibility study and what we could have done differently. As far as timing for the project, if we have to go get additional funds and we can't fund state capacity, they're a bit related. This year, it will just push out the pilot for another year. It's an 8-year pilot, so that just whittles down the time that we have to play with it. In addition, all these things are connected. You heard from the North Unit farmers this morning. There's a flow goal of 300 CFS they need to meet in 2028. And frankly, the conservation projects are probably not going to get us there where they're going to be held whole to do that. So materially, we see the water bank as a really important tool to help keep North Unit farmers whole as flows are restored. So I think there's both just, we want to keep trying something. We frankly ran a pilot program, a couple of years ago that was similar, just playing with it. So these ideas are new, but they need more development. They need to be tested so that we can eventually scale up and really make a difference with these tools. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes, the legislators, representatives Helm and Owens also had another bill to have a water bank statewide. And so this is supposed to be the precursor for developing this further. So by delaying it, it delays a lot more than just this project.
Commissioner Mall?
Thanks, Kate. Can you explain a little bit more about in there, it sounded like you all have federal funding available that you said you could repurpose to sort of support the infrastructure of this on the department side? Did I hear that right? If we were to fund the request, that would, you have some fungible funds that would support it outside of the budget that's presented here, because that budget doesn't include department FTE to manage it. Is that how you're thinking
Right,
about
yeah.
it?
Vice Chair Smitherman and Commissioner Mall and Commissioners, yes. And so there is not money in the feasibility grant budget for the state. Our current understanding is that the state, is interpreting that they cannot pay themselves through their own grants, but I think there is maybe a question to be asked there. That's outside of my wheelhouse. We are in discussions with other outside non-governmental funders about this program that we think will ultimately bear fruit, but we do not have the full amount in hand right now. We do have a drought grant with reclamation that if we need to be creative, we could try to work with them to shift some of that over to the state. As you know, the federal agencies are not particularly easy to work with right now. But that would be our hope, yes, is that we could cover our staff time costs with some state money and repurpose some existing funds we have to pay the state to work on the projects.
Creative, great. Thank you.
Any other comments,
One
thoughts?
last question.
Commissioner Newman?
You said that you thought it would be damaging to push this out a year, but if we send it back for you and staff to discuss further, I don't know that, I mean, if we said, go back and reapply next spring with a whole new proposal and explain why it's, why it fits, or in the meantime, work on the rulemaking process to make the bridging apparent or something like that. That would be a year or more. But if we said, just go back and discuss this, so that the ART becomes would make a positive recommendation, I don't see why that would necessarily take a year. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Is that
What?
something that could come back to us
They might
at
say
the next
no.
meeting?
They might say no.
They might just say no,
Yeah.
in which case, kind of a purgatory situation.
Yeah.
Somewhat,
Go ahead.
Chair, somewhat unrelated, but I think related. Did I understand correctly in that broader presentation, Angela, perhaps you can address this, that the larger partnership that is coming to us next year with a fully implementable plan has done that independently without state funding, unlike the programs that we have had. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Vice Chair Smitherman and Commissioner Mull, I can answer that, Angela, if that's okay. Sort of, not really. So we're the Deschutes Basin has been doing place-based planning since before the program was started. We're not one of the official 4 state pilots, but we are following the place-based planning framework, and we have received state funding and support, along with a lot of other sources of funding and support for that.
Thank you.
These are all good comments. It's hard, as we've talked in the past, the trust and respect that we have for the ART, and all 6 have expressed their opinion about this. It's something that I believe would be good work, but I also am having trouble wanting to go against the ART. I like the idea that potentially the ART could reevaluate this with the comments that have been made. And I don't know if that's something through process that has to wait until the next cycle of funding, or if it's something that we can ask today and have thoughts and more discussion about it at our next commission meeting. So I don't know what the process is as it relates to that. Director.
Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission, I don't have a specific answer for that, but if we can take a 5-minute break and I can consult with staff, we can get you some information that
Okay.
might help with your decision process.
Okay, I think we should do that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll come back, talk about this some more. had a chance to talk. It does not sound like that the ART is going to be able to reconvene in time for our next commission meeting. We are very much appreciative of the work of the ART. We respect their decisions. We respect their recommendations and the reasoning behind why they decided not to fund this particular project. However, we've heard some new things today. We've had some discussions, and really, I think that it's going to be up to us as the commission to decide whether this moves forward today, or we ask them to reapply in the spring for the next cycle. So with that, does anyone have any thoughts they want to?
Well, yeah, I just.
Commissioner Newman, go ahead.
If maybe this is a question for DRC, but if the legislature had funded the bill, 3806, would we be here with this problem today?
Vice Chair Commissioner Newman, sorry that I'm not giving you the short answer. So there were two pieces of funding that could have been associated or that were related to the legislation. One was that we chose not to put money for the administration on our end. And two was the state putting their own fiscal on it that is meant to come now from the DRC as well. So together, those things make it more critical to have this funding. Yeah, absolutely.
So they put us in an awkward position.
Yes.
Nothing new.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, so I'll make a motion and see where it goes.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
I would recommend option 2, which would allow us to fund this project now. I think if the ART had the ability to see the testimony, they would probably have agreed with us, and I don't think that we're doing harm to them by going forward. But that's the motion I'll put on the floor.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Newman?
Still thinking, can you start somewhere else?
Or give us a minute. Commissioner Chiara?
Yes. I second.
Okay, Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Mall?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Give her enough time to think.
I guess I'll say yes with a stomp of my feet because I don't feel like this is the right way to do it, but I do feel like we've been put in a box. Okay, I'm just voting.
I think that's a yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I agree.
Yes. Reluctant, yes.
I also vote yes. So motion passes. And funding for all 5 projects is approved. Okay. And we already had public comment, so thank you for your public comment. Thank you for the presentation. And again, we want to reiterate that we are grateful to the ART for all of their work.
Yes.
And this is not a reflection on that. We just felt this is the right thing to do. Okay. All right, moving on. I think we've got time for maybe one more item. We've got the director's report. Director Gall, you want to take that?
Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the commission, as always, a pleasure to be here. I've got some additional things to report out on that I'll go through, and then I'll open it up for questions and comments on the new items, as well as what was in the written director's report that went out to you here a couple of weeks ago. First would be an update on what we call the East Valley case. The Oregon Supreme Court recently issued an opinion in the East Valley Water District case. The court remanded the commission's order to address one of the issues in this case. This was a case that dates back about 6 years or so. And I believe Commissioner Mall and Commissioner Kahara were both present during that period of time. And so they may have some additional information there and some insights. Although the court has issued its opinion, it has not issued the judgment in the case, which means that the case has not yet been formally returned to the commission, and there's no action for the commission to take at this time. The department will inform the commission members when the court enters its judgment so that the commission may address the court's remand at a future commission meeting. As a brief reminder, the East Valley case arose out of the commission's denial of East Valley's application to store water in an on-channel reservoir on Drift Creek, which is a tributary of the Pudding River east of Salem there in the Willamette Valley. The commission denied the application on the basis that it would be detrimental to the public interest because the proposed storage would inundate an in-stream water right and therefore frustrate the beneficial purpose of the in-stream water right. The court agreed that the commission correctly interpreted its public interest factors statute in concluding that one of the public interest factors addresses a specific use underlying a water right and not just the quantity of water to which the water right holder is entitled. However, the court also held that the commission failed to consider all 7 of the statutory public interest factors before making a final determination that East Valley's proposed use was not in the public interest. The court remanded the case for the commission to consider those required factors. So again, once a judgment is issued, we'll update the commission on that. I suspect we'll have some work to do at the December commission meeting, and we'll move forward from there. So I'll pause there to see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Yeah, Commissioner Newman.
Hi, I just want to note that I will be recusing myself on this case. I represented one of the group of protestants against the project in the administrative contested case process. My clients were the landowners where the facility was going to be built. They were not members of the East Valley Irrigation District. So when the commission made its decision on the basis of the in-stream flow and fisheries issues, Water Watch proceeded with East Valley. They both appealed to the Court of Appeals, and my clients dropped out. So I haven't been involved in either of the 2 judicial review phases, but I'm still going to recuse myself from discussion on remand or any discussion today about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. So I'll go ahead and continue on here. Let's see, on September 2nd, Doug Woodcock and I traveled over to Central Oregon and attended a tribal water forum at the High Desert Museum. Also in attendance was Governor's Natural Resource Office and representatives from a number of other natural resource agencies there. The intent of this forum was to seek input from the tribes on their desire to hold future water forums, formal meetings where we can discuss water-related issues here in the state with the 9 sovereign tribes. We're interested in finding out from them if they are interested in doing that, and they initially appear to be, what kind of a forum would that look like? How frequently would they like to meet? Do they have ideas for venues? A number of the tribal members there weren't able to answer all questions, so the state is going to be preparing a letter for tribal leadership, and we'll be asking a number of questions for them to give some consideration to and provide us with some answers to help work through this issue. We're excited to be able to have that forum. Water is important to both the state and the 9 tribes. And so we want to make sure that we've got an open line of communication around these water issues across the state. I'll also note that the annual government to government summit is being held in Coos Bay, October 7th and 8th there. And in attendance will be most agencies' leadership, as well as the governor and the 9 sovereign tribes there as well. Commissioner Mall mentioned earlier today the very important nexus between water and land use. So I'm happy to share that Director Bateman has reached out to the Water Resources Department to begin work with us on updating our state agency coordination program with the Department of Land and Conservation Development. This is a document that was last updated in August of 1990. So it's got a few years on it. Statewide planning issues have changed, and so we really need to get that updated. The program itself helps ensure that our agency actions comply with statewide planning goals and align with local comprehensive plans. DLCD is prepared to help us with some technical support. They have ideas on streamlining ways to update these agreements. And so we're looking forward to getting to work on that. Please note that we will also be having a joint commission meeting with Oregon's Land Conservation and Development Commission in late February as well. So staff between now and then will be preparing presentations to help build out and frame this water land use nexus for both commissions. And I'm hoping for some good discussion between the commissions and staff there to figure out ways to chart that path forward and do some good things for Oregon here. And I think the last thing I'll mention, I'm sure many of you saw the September revenue forecast for the state of Oregon was down. We don't know exactly what that means yet. In some information shared by the state economists, there continues to be a fair amount of uncertainty as to really what the future holds. You know, we'll start paying, as we always do, close attention to the budget and look for cost controlling measures, but there will be more to follow as additional revenue forecasts come out later this year and early next year there as well. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions or comments on any of those items or anything in the written staff report there.
Any comments or questions? Okay. I think we may have time for one more item. Meeting minutes. Let's take a look at those meeting minutes. This is on the agenda for tomorrow, but since we have a bit of time, we can take a look now. Agenda item I. Commissioners, any changes, corrections? Thoughts?
I move approval of the meeting minutes as reported.
I second that.
Okay. Commissioner Lee? Yes. Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Chiara?
Yes.
Commissioner Mall?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so meeting minutes are approved. Okay, I think we'll save the rest for tomorrow morning. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. We had a great day. I know everyone's probably pretty tired by now after our adventures this morning. We will adjourn for today, but we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So we'll see you all here. Thank you.